Who's this Pokemon? No, it's not Voltorb. It's Jigglypuff from above. Okay, I'll give you a second try. What Pokemon does Voltorb evolve into? Nope, it's not Electrode. It's also Jigglypuff from above. If you love goofy shenanigans like this, then today's game is going to be beautiful for you. I'm talking about Celia's Stupid ROM Hack, an incredible puzzle game that requires you to think out of the box in every situation you come across. There's hundreds of memes thrown in here, references that will make you laugh out loud, and some of the goofiest but most polished gameplay you can get in a Pokemon game. So what are we waiting for? Let's boot it up right now. Is that an FBI warning? Oh god. Better finish this game quickly before they knock on my door. In this world full of shenanigans, we get greeted by Professor Oak, who's an actual oak. He says this world is inhabited by creatures called Pokemon, and then sends out another tree. You don't get to pick your gender in this game, just your sprite, because both of them have been mashed together. But when you try to name your character, the first thing I saw was that the Y button was missing. For now, we don't know why, but I bet it's going to be very important later. We then get to know his grandson. No, it's not Blue or Gar, it's Gary. Haven't you seen the TV show? We then get strung down and are placed in the back of a moving van, which is conveniently parked inside of our room in Pallet Town. The moment I jump out, the truck drives away through the wall. Don't ask me how that's possible. It's hilarious, and I love it. This thing in front of us? No, it's not an NES. It's actually a very fancy toaster. In Celia's game, it's very necessary to interact with everything. Not only stuff like furniture, but also overworld items, walls, and every single person you come across. The bookshelf in our room hosts a copy of My Secret Life Chapter 3, a piece of literature that is quite literally in nearly every single bookcase across Kanto. I don't know why the creators love this chapter so much, but after some quick research, it has something to do with Earthbound, a game that I unfortunately never played. We also have 12 identical copies of our favorite shirt, and instead of a potion on our PC, there is an ether now? I wonder if this will be relevant later. There's also a piece of mail that states that we have been delivered by a child delivery service. This really made me wonder who my parents were, but before I headed downstairs, there was one last tip I needed to check. This sign told me to press the L or R button in order to bring up a help menu. Only that help consisted of every single chapter of the Bible. Yeah, I'm certainly not going to be reading all of that, so let's head downstairs instead and meet up with our dad, who's a Mr. Mime? He told me Professor Oak was waiting for me, but when I talked to him, nothing really seemed to happen. The sink asked me what I was thinking about. I couldn't really answer since I was still letting everything sink in. I then went outside and tried to enter the tall grass. This is where Oak, in his actual tree form, came out to get me. Inside, we meet up with Gary, who is also here for his first starter Pokemon. Oak lets us pick between 3 of them. We've got Charmander, Charmander, and Charmander. It seems like Oak definitely understands marketing, because they need to sell this game somehow. So after grabbing everybody's favorite fire type, Gary somehow picks up a Squirtle. Then when our battle starts, his Pokemon has already evolved into Wartortle. Instead of the regular explanation you get from Oak when starting this battle, he just started flickering the lights on and off. Another weird thing was that my Charmander was only level 4. So when I checked his stats, he was now a fire fighting type with the ability Torrent? I also only had one move in Scratch, so I started spamming that, but Gary then hit me with some hyper beams that he didn't even have to recharge for. I mean, of course Oak would give his grandson an advantage in our first battle. What else would he do?
I got the best Pokemon from Professor Oak. It's good to have a grandfather in the Pokemon business, isn't it?
Professor Oak's employees then consisted of 2 aides and 1 Psyduck that was studying AIDS as Professor Oak's Pokemon. He also had a nuclear reactor in his office, a patient that was flatlining, and an email from Mutasim Gaddafi, the Prince of Nigeria, asking him to send over some money. Ah, the oldest scam in the book. I hope Oak shows him some charity. And then it's on to Chapter 1, Stupidity and Nonsense. Because yeah, this entire ROM hack is indeed an entire shitpost. Inside of Gary's house, we then meet up with his sister Daisy. Inside we found our very first odd candy. For now we don't really know what we need these for, so instead I just bashed my head against this picture of a bomb until I broke the wall, which opened up a level of Super Mario. If you haven't played Super Mario 64, you jump through paintings in that game, and this is the very first level. It's got the bombs and the chomper, but also also the star you need to get by jumping down on this pillar, which we unfortunately can't do yet. Considering there was nothing else for me to do here, I went back outside and talked to this girl, who just moved to the left every time I talked to her. So I just left her out in the woods and traveled onwards to Route 1. This is where I got destroyed by fierce strategy Rattatas who just kept on using Endeavor and Quick Attack to kill my Charmander. My dad told me it was a skill issue. I'm saying that's straight up unfair. But out of all of the other shenanigans we'll be facing, this is actually pretty mild. We then talked to this Pokemart guy and he told me that this potion that he hands over to me is the last one in the entire universe. And I can just have it. That's really nice of you, but you know what's not nice? Encountering a shiny before you get Pokeballs. Normally you're then forced to kill it, but in this scenario, it killed me yet again. There's a really cool thing about shiny Pokemon in this game, but I'll get into that once it's relevant. We eventually reach Viridian City, where this guy told me his boss asked him to deliver a package to a literal tree. Even though it's his actual job, he's just going to make me, a 10-year-old kid, do it. And just as we suspected, the entire potion supply is indeed empty. Before going back to Oak, I checked out the local Pokemon Center and found out that he's actually growing by 1 ring per year. I also kicked the PC to turn it on, but also found the world map, which has a lot more islands in between Cinnabar and Fuchsia. I wonder what kind of mysteries they'll be hiding. Nurse Joy didn't want to heal my Pokemon at first, and also told me she wanted them to get hurt again, so I'd return. Healthcare is free in the Pokemon world, so I can't really complain, I guess. After heading upstairs, that just sent me back downstairs, I then went over to the local trainer school. Here I memorized a pattern that I actually never needed now that I think about it, and read this girl's Sonic fanfiction. Also found the only window in the game with flavor text, and learned that every daisy in the entire map is actually Daisy. Man, I love creative people. We also found this guy that lost the keys to his house, which I guess we'll have to search for later. We then went back to everybody's favorite tree to deliver the package. Inside was a Jizz Ball that will definitely be very plot relevant, and also some regular Pokeballs and the Pokédexes for us, which he highly recommends we fill out. With all of that information, I go ahead and grab my first Rattata, so now I can use the Fierce strategy for myself and scare away any trainer that stands in my way. Right? Anyway, on Route 22, we find a sign that shows you how many new wild Pokemon are available. These will be on most routes, so you know how long you'll have to search. This is where we captured 2 Nidotrans who had the opposite genders, with the male now having the ability Big Pecs that makes Peck stronger. Then there was also a Mankey in the form of a Tepig, because I guess Mankey is part pig, and now the pig has just fully taken over. After grabbing these 3, we had to fight our rival Larry. He starts off with a level 50 Zapdos that naturally kills all of your Pokemon unless you have a Rattata with Endeavor and Quick Attack, which can easily knock out his legendary. He then also has the Wartortle with Hyper Beam at level 6 still, that goes down with a couple of Quick Attacks too. He thought for sure his Zapdos could beat my stupid rat, but it is revealed that Larry here is indeed not Gary. It's just an entirely different guy that knows me and started off with the same Pokemon, I guess. If we start questioning things too much in this game, you'll go crazy. So I just moved on, picked up a second odd candy, and found the guy that has been losing them. It's an old man that wants to evolve his Meltan in Pokemon Go, but he's lost 45 of his candies that have been scattered all over Kanto, and now we have to go fight them. If we do so, he'll give us a crazy good reward. You can check up on your progress with him after you get the 8th gym badge. I then wanted to head over to Viridian Forest. This is where an old guy told me that a previous old guy was lying dead here on the floor. Anyway, he shows me the catching tutorial. He encounters a shiny Weedle here, which just goes on to explode, and naturally, this kills the grandpa. I totally understand why that last guy died too, but this is just pure comedy. Every single country in the game is also Oak, so when you talk to him, he'll actually talk back. After getting exploded on by a couple of Weedles myself, I ended up capturing one too, and after checking out its moves, I saw that nearly every single one has a new description. Like Poison Sting being so weak that even with double power, it's still bad. An Explosion's description is literally, oh no, Grandpa's dead. I love how detailed this game is. Literally everything has been altered. It's like a full-on Easter egg hunt. This guy wanted to trade my Mewtwo for a Rattata, which, let's be honest, is probably better. I found a couple of not oak trees just in front of Viridian, and inside of the forest itself, I ended up grabbing a Metapod that used the move Harden, which made my Pokemon fall in love with it. The description of that attack was, the user stiffens to attract a mate. I just used it to capture another Caterpie though. My dad was also in the forest who healed me up, which was very nice of him. Then as I was leveling up my Charmander by defeating some local bug catchers, I saw that he learned Water Gun and Ember, both of which were water-type moves. The Torrent ability starts to make sense, and I'm sure Brock will be really easy with these too. After grabbing another odd candy, this guy misclicked on his level 60 Metagross with Explosion, which sent me straight to the final trainer of the forest, Camper AJ, with his specially trained Sandshrew, because this thing is immune to water-type attacks because he always chucks it in the pond next to him. If you didn't know, that's actually a reference to the anime where Ash fights a trainer that trains his Sandshrew like this, and he is indeed also named AJ. Upon his defeat, he also gives me a hint that Brock's Onix is immune to water attacks. And guess what moves my Charmander learns? Water attacks. So I guess we'll have to find another way to get through him. I then shoved all of the plants and this girl into the same tile, thanked the Kanto Lawn Maintenance Service for mowing the grass, and reached Pewter City. This is where I found an episode of Pokemon that's usually banned in this country, so we couldn't watch it, and this random guy was spraying a repel so I couldn't encounter any Pokemon inside of this grass, which meant I needed to find another way to get encounters. This guy told me when Jigglypuff plays, spectators fall asleep, but his Jigglypuff was a Pokeball, so even though I didn't understand it right now, I'm sure this reference will be cleared up in no time. This guy was popping off with his level 70 Caterpie, but it hadn't evolved yet, which had me thinking it might have a special evolution at level 100. I tried to get to Brock's gym, but it was blocked off. Luckily, this guy can just run through the forest with you, no problem. Outside, I find a sign that recommends level 10 for this gym, which means you don't actually need to go over if you want to beat it. Inside, we get another clue from the gym concierge. You see, not only is Brock's Onix immune to water-type moves, he's also immune to physical-type attacks. So all I have to do is find one Pokemon with a special move that isn't water-type. So I started evolving my team members into Kakuna with hands that had the attack Weedle Arm. You'd think he'd then evolve into Beedrill, but no, he turns into a different kind of bee, Combi. It not only has the ability Honey Gather, but also Sweet Scent, which allowed me to bypass the guy's Repel and encounter Grimer. Unfortunately, this blob of slime will not work against Brock. It had the unfortunate ability Sticky Load, but also the move Wombo Eyes. Doesn't he know he needs to put it on the M for Mini? This guy then tries to walk me to the museum, but completely misses and walks straight through it. I tried to get in myself, but it costs 10,000 Pokédollars for an entry ticket, so yeah. My broke ass ain't paying for that. Instead, I evolved my Metapod into Butterfree, the solution to Brock's gym because it learns Confusion. I end up walking this many miles to reach him because he's literally a light year away from me. So after catching my breath and going to the doctor for new legs, we end up challenging his Crystal Onix. Considering it couldn't do any damage to me, 2 confusions was all it took to knock it out. He hands over the Boulder Badge as well as the TM that definitely exists. Bye. The sprinklers then turn on and he grabs his trusty frying pan as a drying pan. Let's leave him be because we need to head over to the next route, where we meet one of Professor Oak's aides. He told me I forgot my running shoes, but I've been running this entire time. That might have been a really bad idea because running without those shoes on is illegal. Even though there was a lovely letter from my dad attached to them, I did not put these shoes on because we'll have to use them later on for something special. But the moment I started walking forward, this random girl came out of nowhere and said I was looking at her, even though she was literally off screen. This happened again with another lass walking through a wall and saying the exact same thing. And then there was this guy named Shorts who was comfy and easy to wear, and he had a comfy as a Pokemon. I really need to start wearing shorts more. After grabbing an odd candy, I then moved on to the next route where a sign told me that I could check my Pokedex to see how many Pokemon I could get. Right now we're at 12 out of 12, so that's great. But there were a couple more, like this Jigglypuff that was disguised as a Pokeball. It wasn't only holding a Soda Pop-Off, but also had a ton of Super Smash Bros. Moves. So I'm guessing this is a really annoying Pokemon to face in that game. It also might have something to do with a World Championship, but I'm not caught up on that lore. After grabbing an underleveled Pidgeotto whose Pokedex entry read, "Wait, where's Pidgey?" I then challenged Faulkner Sr. He is indeed the father of the first gym leader of Johto, and even went out to capture some birds on this route for his son, because he recently got the keys to a new gym. Maybe we'll have to challenge him one day, but not right now. First, I talked to some of the people here, and they warned me that you can't run away from Pokemon in Mount Moon, which feels very scary. There was also this newspaper in the form of an NES. This guy sold me a water dragon type Gyarados for 500 Pokebucks, and then we entered the cave ourselves for Chapter 2. Defeat the DMCA. I'm sure we won't have any problems like that with this video. However, we did see something very weird. Tentacool. It has Arena Trap, which means your Pokemon can indeed not escape, so I end up capturing one of these myself, and proceed to evolve it by giving it running shoes so it turns into Toadscool. It not only learns the move Drill Run, but also the ability Run Away, which means we can now safely traverse Mount Moon without having to be stuck in encounters. That didn't mean there wasn't any more danger, like this lass who used Metronome with her Clefairy so everybody would explode, and my dad was also here to give me min and max repels for the minimum and maximum amount of repelled steps, I guess. On the new outside areas of Mount Moon, we now have Parises with the ability Drought. That makes themselves 8 times as weak to fire type moves. I also grab a Clefairy for myself so I can have some shenanigans and fun with Metronome too, then fought this random angry nerd with a Voltorb that hadn't only turned into a Lure Ball but also couldn't use self-destruct because of its damp ability. I guess not every Pokemon can be useful, eh? This random hiker then showed me his incredibly rare Pokemon that we certainly wouldn't find around here, Geodude, that was using Dive as an attack. I don't know what was going on here either, so I tried to ask this really nice DMCA grunt with his Zubat, which is an incredibly rare Pokemon by the way, because they've apparently been replaced with tentacles that have been leaking in through water that's in the walls. The geniusness just gets better with the minute. Anyway, the DMCA grunts all love using the move Takedown, a corporate ploy to remove content from the internet for profit. Then my mind got blown even more by become advanced and trailblazed, so I answered by throwing the world at them with Seismic Toss. I then picked up a Sunstone in Mount Moon, and then get destroyed by this level 100 DMCA Raticate. But we all know the way to take down rats is with more rats. I could have avoided that takedown if I knew this shortcut was there before the fight. And believe me, there's a lot more situations like this, so looking for cheap shortcuts everywhere is not a bad thing to do. At the end of the cave, we meet up with DMCA grunt Wolf, who says that these fossils are under serious charges. He's also got a Wonder Guard Coughing that's now a dark poison type, so the only way to defeat it is with a ground type attack, which is exactly what Toadscool's Drill Run was good for. He also had a Voltorb that could steal your Pokemon's ability with roleplay and then actually explode. Once that was done, I picked up my Jaw Fossil, Wolf took his into custody, and I got spotted by another lass that thought I was looking at her from across the mountain. I made it to Route 4 after this and saw we couldn't return from here. So let's hope we didn't forget anything important. There are also 2 unconscious old guys that got kicked and punched very hard. After grabbing an odd candy, I'd also pick up an Ekans and Sandshrew who had this ability. I know it's Intimidate shuffled around, but I don't understand the reference. But with these 2, we could finally reach Cerulean City, where I got to challenge the TCG Master, Misty, and her entire gym had been turned into a wonderful card tournament. Turns out my dad is actually a very big TCG star that I didn't know about. There was also this weird guy named Imakuni and champion Dylan Austin. He was boasting TCG cards with the energies attached to them like Scyther, Hitmonchan, and Electabuzz. The bug was very interesting though, because he had the attack Retreat, because upon his defeat he gave me one of those, and that move is the key to unlocking this gym, because it's now an HM move that lets you retreat to the closest bench, which is the only way to get to Misty. So after taking down some of these iconic cards, she shows me what got her cards banned. It's because of her actual sprite that represents the banned card of Staryu and Misty. The fight itself was really easy though, because my new Scyther just teared through everything she had. With the water medal now mine, we retreated back into town and got the unfortunate news that the Berry Powder Man is dead because nobody cared about him. I need to find out where I can pay my respects to him. But before that, this guy got into the trading card game because he liked the trading aspect, but that's really not what it's about. Which is why he just trades Pokemon now, and wants to give away his Jinx for a Poliwag. I tried to buy myself an amputated tricycle, but the guy would only sell it to me for $1 more than I'd always have, making it impossible to buy one for now. This girl was trying to break the TCG with Slowbro. I found a way to make unlimited money by buying nuggets from this guy and selling them for $1 more. However, the nuggets aren't gold, they're chicken nuggets. Why am I selling these? I should be eating them. I even offered one to this guy named Jerry at the Nugget Bridge, but instead he threw out the KFC sponsor himself, Moltres. This thing might be level 80 and a fire type, but I know fire type moves basically don't exist, which is why Sandshrew was able to slurp up his water type attacks, so we could then waltz over it with rollout just like we did with Pidgeotto straight after. His Abras teleport would then not only kill him, but also me, but before we find out why this happens, we have to take down his Wartortle too with Jigglypuff's Pounce. Just like last time, he doesn't know who Gary or Larry is, he's Jerry, but he acts like he knows me and even gives me the new key item, the Rumor Log. This lets you check what kind of missions you've already completed and which ones you might still need a hint for. It comes in handy a lot and helped me out through some of the hardest parts of this game. Now it was on to Nugget Bridge, or should I say VGC Central, because here we had to face off against some of the biggest names in Pokemon history. Like Sion that won the World Championships with the Pachirisu, Ray Rizzo and his Metagross Is Celia combo, but the biggest contender of them all was definitely VGC champion and the biggest Poketuber around these days, Wolf Glick. Naturally, he had to use a Shadow Tag Incineroar team. Defeating these guys leveled my Gyarados up, which allowed him to evolve into Magikarp. You're better off pressing B on that one. At the end of the bridge, we had to face a DMCA grunt because he thought I genned in some of my Pokemon, and upon his Urshifu's defeat, he recruited me to join the DMCA. If you accept this job, you will become a corporate goon that spends their life hunting down fan content to get a paycheck. And that was Celia's stupid ROM hack. Absolutely not. We still have to make fun of Verlisify, capture a Bellsprout and an Abra, and then walk next to the water to reach Cerulean Cave early because we can apparently already go in. But this random girl named Picnicker Chrissy already captured the Mewtwo from inside. Now it's filled with a waterfall we can't get over and a billion Abras of level 50 plus. They all use teleport just like Jerry's, which now transmissions the user and the opponent inside of a random wall somewhere, which is why they end up dying. That's pretty funny, but you know what's funnier than Route 24? Route 25. That's where I learned that this pair of shorts captured Mew down at the SS Anne. My Jigglypuff learned the move Up Dog and a Skarmory laid down Lego bricks as spikes. We also saw this guy being trapped in by Funbro. Macarjo has an amazing video on that which I highly recommend you check out, but don't start complaining like this Elite Four member Karen. She couldn't stand that people were showing affection in public and even accused me of cheating. Yeah, sure, I'm the one cheating, not the person with the level 13 Groudon. The couple Karen was so jealous of also gave me 2 hints that would come in handy later. After picking up another odd candy, my dad told me Bill wasn't home. That became apparent the moment we started talking to him in his Clefairy form, because I just picked him up and stuffed him in my bag like a Pokédoll. Inside of the teleporter, there was also a man wiggling his finger, which means the Clefairy is just still in there. And when you check out Bill's laptop, we can see some of his favorite Pokemon, like Vaporeon, which I should not have checked. The DMCA then barged into this building to steal an illegal TM, while Celia then told me that I should have 38 Pokemon at this point, which I absolutely did not have. So I went down to the following route to capture 2 new team members, Execute and a Meowth that I ran over with my bulldozer. This cat couldn't only insult people, but also hit it with furry swipes. I then picked up 2 odd candies on the same route as well and retreated to an odd house that was for sale. Who knows, maybe we can one day be a homeowner. Inside of the underground path, I would then trade away my Meowth for a Raichu. That would then evolve back into Meowth? I don't really understand why, but it was holding the coin case, so I'm not going to complain. The underground path is now very annoying to traverse and dark as well. There was a couple of things hiding down there, like this girl that thought I was looking at her again. After smacking her down again, we got to see the new evolution of Luvdisc, Alola. Then we also have the League Beta Pokemon of Generation 5, Oshawott. I know he looks different, but trust me, it's him. We also beat up the Butterfree that stole Ash's boy, got in a fight with a Gen 1 Purist, but eventually made it to the City of Fishing. In both senses, quite literal, because not only did we get the good rod, we also nearly got scammed by this guy if we would have given him my trainer ID. I don't want my information stolen, so I'll just take the good rod for now, which we used to fish up a Poliwag. Even though it doesn't have arms, it only learns punch punching moves, and one of them is Falco Punch. Everybody spammed that in Smash Bros as a kid, right? Not just me. Our tadpole would evolve into Tentaquill, the beta form of Politoed in Generation 2. I don't know why it learns Puke Blood, but I do know that Nidotran evolved into Nidorino. Meowth then learned Fury Swipe 5 times in a row, and my Sandshrew evolved into Sonic. If you're just listening to this audio without context, it must sound so weird. But believe me, we haven't even scratched the surface. And then saw Psyduck doing some construction work, learned that Spearow isn't available in the wild, but we're going to need one if we want to trade it for Farfetch so we can use Cut. The leader of the Pokemon fan club then told me all the reasons of why he hates every single generation of Pokemon, but in the end, you know, he still loves it like all of us. As my reward for listening to his rant though, we got a free bike voucher. This girl told me that she hatched her Spearow, which is probably how we're going to get ours, and this guy ran out of papers, so he started writing a letter on an NES system. After seeing this sad Kangaskhan after having a miscarriage, we then captured a Cubone, found out that this guy's daughter was missing, but we couldn't reach her yet considering we didn't have Cut yet. By looking through these binoculars, we learned that there was a furry convention going on at Rock Tunnel. I also punched my own dad in the face and went to Diglett's cave to grab lots of these little moles. And I really do mean lots. On the other side of Diglett Tunnel, this thing was apparently haunting someone's dreams. I also picked up an odd candy and learned that this guy wanted to trade a Mr. Mime for his Abra. But I don't plan on capturing my dad, so we'll have to see how this gets fixed. I also discovered my very first Pokemon sign. There will be 7 of these scattered across the map, and once we find all of them, something really special will unlock for us. I would then go to the Vermilion Harbor, but the SS Anne was not here. It was planned to arrive, but nobody knows where it went. So I could just scour the docks, where I got teased by a Mew hiding under the truck. I knew we'd have to come back here once we get access to Surf, but I was a little stumped with what to do, which is why I started evolving some of my team members. That's how Charmander evolved into Charmeleon, and then into Charizard, and then into Squirtle, and then into Ivysaur, and then back into Charizard. Oh, I get it. It's like Smash Bros, where Trainer Red switches between the 3 Pokemon. We can do the exact same thing here, which is great because all of them will be needed in certain situations. Squirtle even had some sick shades on. Mankey would then evolve into Primeape, Pidgeotto into Pidgeot, but not the one you're thinking of. Speaking of birds, Spearow was supposed to hatch from an egg, so I leveled up Execute, and that's exactly what happened. So we traded that away for Farfetch'd and sliced down Professor Oak so we could enter Lieutenant Surge's gym. Inside, the sailor went on and on about how we're supposed to complete Lieutenant Surge's hard new puzzle, but as I was trying to do that, the power went out, which caused the Electrizer lock to just go out by itself. Lieutenant Surge himself apparently did some war crimes by killing people in the war, but he blames it on his stupid electric rat, which is why he changed it out for a Porygon. And this thing had the attack Flash, which one-hit KOs literally everything. There is only one way to not get blinded by this move, and that's with some sick shades, which is how Squirtle won me the gym battle with Dragon Ascent. So I got myself the photosensitive badge, but just as he was about to hand over the TM for Flash, Celia walked in and demanded that he threw it away because a move like that would be way too overpowered for the player. So instead, I just got the real move, Bite Again. I would then backtrack to Route 2 where we had the opportunity to capture our dad's family. However, none of them would stay in a regular Pokeball for now. Of course, this teases you again with another uncatchable shiny Pokemon, so I just left this place in tears, grabbed the odd candy I missed in the underground path, traded my voucher in for a bike which turned out to be a Koraidon just like in Scarlet and Violet. I also traded my Poliwag away for a non-controversial Jinx and got trolled by this spinning tile that would send you upward instead of down. I also found Pokemon Trainer Red bashing his head into a wall. One of his team members was also the Pidgeot of Twitch Plays Pokemon, which was pretty cool to see. There were more references to that playthrough as well on this route, like the Helix Fossil and Lord Helix himself, who with his godlike status now had the move Judgment. This Drowsy was guarding a dangerous criminal Flareon, don't know what that was about. Lance attacked me with an illegal Dragonite. This biker had a random Venomoth bike. This camper showed me that his rat loves digging tunnels, which of course immediately bring you to the Pokemon Center just like the TM dig. I would then grab myself a Voltorb and prepared myself for how hard Rock Tunnel would be to traverse, because the game doesn't give you the HM for Flash and so many trainers were warning me because of it. The moment I tried to enter the dungeon, I got attacked by the Stop Looking At Me girl. She was spamming Metronome with her Clefairy that turned into Leaf Tomato. Then I stepped foot into Rock Tunnel and was immediately teleported to Route 10, because we all know Rock Tunnel is a vital part of the Kanto experience. Shortly after, I'd reach Lavender, where a lot of people were rumoring about about the DMCA being around, while Cubone's mom Marowak also went missing somehow. The engineer who built Pokemon Tower in this universe sucked at math, which is why it looks so crooked. The local dance theater also got shut down because they were playing copyrighted music there. So how are the people around here supposed to shake it and do the diet dance now? I knew we had to get rid of the DMCA somehow. So after gathering some more clues about Marowak's mother, who's also a teacher inside of the local trainer school, it all led me back to Pokemon Tower. Inside, we bought the all-famous TM Tombstoner. So all these years, that one question in Blaine's gym has been wrong, because it does exist and works exactly like Stealth Rock. On one of the upper floors, I paid my respects to Grandpa and met up with another one of my rivals, Harry. He has a fully healthy Raticate that didn't die because the SSN just doesn't exist. However, this thing and his second Pokemon, Ho-Oh, have the move Revival Blessing with unlimited PP that they just keep on spamming so the actual fight never ends. The easy way for me to break this puzzle was just to use Tombstoner, which would lay down the Stealth Rocks, which could easily kill the 1 HP Raticate so that their Revival loop would be broken. Naturally, he also had the level 6 Wartortle in the back. After Harry leaves, he tells me yet again how glad he is he never entered any boats. However, the rest of the Pokemon Tower was still blocked off for me since I still had no way to see ghosts. Instead, I checked out my boxes and saw that there were some incredible new ones. You know, like this random Mew that was sitting in my PC, the copy pasta that we see in every single bookshelf, this wonderful QR code that you should scan by the way, the famous Pokemon game box, a boxing match, the box from SpongeBob, a Who's That Pokemon screen, another one dedicated to how much I love my dad, the Wii shopping channel, this illusion one, and lastly the OG window screen. I would then go ahead and pick up an odd candy on the next route before going west to Route 7 where the weather was really playing up. The rain on this route was actually a good thing though because we picked up a Psyduck pail, which was necessary in order to get rid of this Sudowoodo that was blocking my way east. But there was a hole in the bottom of our yellow cup, which meant I could only take a certain number of steps before it would run out of water. I tried many different routes, but none of them seemed to work until I noticed this bench. That indicated to me that I just needed to use retreat, which is exactly what happened. But if you thought this was going to be an actual Sudowoodo, it's not. It's Imposter Oak. Not only resembling the Pokemon card, but he also throws out a Sudowoodo. After defeating him, the path would be cleared, so I was able to move on to the underground path, which unlike last time was incredibly short. On the other side, I'd find Picnicker Anne. She told me she found a Houndour and Murkrow on this route by changing the time to night, which I never found a way to do, so I'm guessing that's not even in the game. Which meant I could only grab a Doduo here before moving on to Celadon City, or should I say Random City. Because just like all of the YouTube randomizer videos, this entire town has been randomized. You try to enter the Pokemon Center, you come out of a house. You try to go up some stairs, you end up in an endless loop. What I'm saying is that you never know where you're going to end up. Neither do most of the people in this town, as this guy was just trying to enter his own house and now he's stuck in the Pokemon Center. There is a town map that technically shows you where to go, but I wanted to figure it out on my own, which is how I ended up in the department store. Here I bought a whole bunch of evolutionary stones, saw Gold's mom telling him that she was once again spending money on useless items, witnessed Professor Oak stealing this guy's girlfriend, and picked up the item Ligma. To this day, I still don't know what it is, so if you could tell me in the comments, that'd be great. I started my own hotel, saw my dad working as a security guard, and snuck my way into the DMCA law offices. Here I checked my YouTube analytics, picked up some Viagra from a plant, battled Willy, saw that Team Rocket got captured by the DMCA as well, who made them blast off. The hideout then further led me into Celia's torture room, where she creates all the devilish puzzles where this game is built upon. She even let me enter her basement, which was filled with all of the wonderful contributors that made this game possible. I left them stuck in the pit and jumped off a building. That got me another odd candy as well as this guy's egg because he works for the Kanto egg delivery service, but got lost around here. I mean, I don't blame him, but I'm not going to deliver that egg for him as I'll be keeping it for myself because it looked like a Manaphy egg, which made me very intrigued. Then there was this instance of me stealing this guy's Eevee because he was sleeping, and every time I left the room, he would shout out,
"No! Someone stole my Eevee!"
So I kept doing it because every time I left, he fell back asleep, and on the third try, he got me by laying down a trap Smash Bros. Jigglypuff. I still wanted to try again after that though, but when I entered the room for a third time, the DMCA had him arrested because he tried to pass another Pokemon as an Eevee. But hey, at least this guy did give me that third Eevee, so now we can get all the evolutions. Right? One of the other warps sent me to Sutupolis City in Hoenn. I think I'm in the wrong game. Unfortunately, we can't challenge the gym yet as we don't know how to surf. Luckily, getting here wasn't all for nothing as this girl gifted me a Psyduck that was actually a Golduck. Probably a reference to that one episode where Misty thought her Psyduck evolved into a Golduck, but it actually didn't. Plus, my egg also hatched not into Manaphy, but instead Fion. It had the ability Pisher, which made this guy piss his pants so that we could grab the lift key. With it, we could activate the elevator inside of the department store, which led me to the final room of the law offices. That's where I met one of their admins, Lars, who just blew me up with a bunch of his coughings. But before I would pick up what I thought was the Sylph Scope in this room, I would use all of my stones on my Eevees. Most of them would just turn her into Eevee again, except for the Dawnstone, who gave me Sylveon. With her, we defeated the DMCA boss Jigglypuff and grabbed the Super Scope. After snatching up another Pokédoll, this grandma gave me Toxic Sludge, which apparently makes you less thirsty. Luckily for me, I wasn't in need of a drink right now. However, I think this biker might get thirsty because he's going to be stuck here forever. Because not only doesn't he have a Pokemon that can learn Surf, but he also can't backtrack through the building since he doesn't have a walking animation. Oh well, at least that gave me an odd candy, and then went on this big ass spinning tile puzzle that would eventually spew me out in the Hall of Fame. But that was way too early, they were still setting everything up for me, so Oak just told me to leave. The police arrested the man that was creeping around Erica's gym, which I still hadn't found my way into. The only thing I ended up finding was 1, 2, 3, 4, the TM4 counter, a bunch of gaming stations my dad would love, and no Dratini at the game corner, only Porygons for the highest price possible. So instead, I wanted to go gambling, but that's not allowed when you're underage. But the floor was filled with people dropping their coins, which is how I immediately found 9,999 of them. I defeated this grunt, pressed the NES system on the wall to open up a secret stairway, and found a system that lets you change your Pokemon's color on your trainer card, which is something nobody apparently uses. Then I'd buy myself a weird Porygon while also getting 2 evolutions done. Bellsprout into Cherubi, and Psyduck into Golduck. I was then nice enough to give the cards that were not letting me into Saffron some toxic waste, and they just disintegrated on the spot, which I thought was so funny. However, the city itself was fully taken over by the DMCA, the gym was shut down, and this house hosted a meeting for Celia's stupid ROM hack 2. So I went east to the other side of Route 7. That's where I got attacked by a nerd that was spamming Game Genie with his Mew, plus we also saw our second Pokemon sign, an Alolan Growlithe. Slowking then put on some pants, attacked me with some string shorts. My dad let me stand under his umbrella for a bit before I finally found out why this route was changing weather the whole time. The grass was filled with Vulpix that had the ability Drizzle. I grabbed one of them, found a leaf stone, pushed the bench down to the other side of the river, retreated to it, and saw that this girl was just seeing all of her friends drown. I couldn't help them unfortunately, which is why I just beat up this girl with her Groudon and Kyogre, who was partly responsible to the weather changes as well. And right at the end, I pick up my next odd candy before starting Chapter 3, My Secret Life. Because we had the Super Scope now, I went back to Pokemon Tower, but the ghost we saw there was actually just a ghost, which meant I still couldn't really get past it until I figured out that I had to pick up this girl's Pokédoll, then her second Pokédoll, and then use her as a Pokédoll as well because they allow you to escape any battle. I wasted 10 minutes of my life talking to these Litwicks, saw some very weird and cursed Pokemon like these Unknowns, plus another girl that only had Pokemon that you'd see in a creepypasta, all because she needed a blood transfusion because blood kept leaking out of her eyes? I did not understand that reference, so I just gave some directions to a lost silver and had to solve some terrible math questions, which had me face the struggles of Plusle, Minun, Dividum, Multipal, Exponel, and even Pseudo-Wudo. This did reward me with an odd candy, while also meeting up with Mr. Fuji on the second to last floor. He was here to save Cubone's mother and would help me out by relearning my Pokemon's moves. Because the entire premise here was Marowak, I evolved my own Cubone into one because I thought it would be needed for the final puzzle here. Once that was done, I climbed up to the top floor. This is where we met Susan, another one of the DMCA's admins. They turned Marowak, now a Kangaskhan of course, into a shadow Pokemon and forced it to attack me. The whole thing about this fight was that she'd use Substitute, but not just one, 3 of them in total, each one turning into a smaller version of herself, which meant I needed an attack that would hit 4 times if I wanted to win. Thinking about this fried my brain a little more than the math questions, but eventually I realized that I picked up a math club. This thing makes Marowak's attacks hit twice. With Mr. Fuji's help, we could relearn its Shadow Boomerang, an attack that always hits twice, which will now hit 4 times, and that's how we took down Kangaskhan. Upon its defeat, it purifies back into its normal form and scares away the rest of the DMCA, so Mr. Fuji could safely come up and thank us for all that we've done. He thinks the parental bond she has with her son Cubone is what brought her back to sanity, so hey, I guess not every Cubone's mother is dead. To reward me, he hands over some history books at school, which we can always use to relearn moves for our Pokemon. Since the DMCA is now also gone, the dance theater has reopened. Naturally, I go inside to watch this wonderful show. Ash Ketchum was also here, who picked up a random kid from the street with a Pikachu costume on. So this other guy in the audience told me to fill up his suit sack with Ash, which is literally what I ended up doing. As my reward, he gives me a blue-looking flute that has a very strong power that will awaken any sleeping Pokemon. So I played it in front of the Snorlax blocking my path, but instead of getting it out of the way, it created an actual different path for me to walk on. This led me to some amazing finds, like this fisherman who has been stuck here on these docks for weeks, a Gyarados chasing a man around, the god of all Pokemon Arceus that had a bench near him which would allow me to go back and retreat to it if it wasn't for these failing spamming no retreat. I also saw my dad floating around the bay with a balloon. These Delibirds stayed asleep forever with their insomnia and vital spirit abilities. A little further up there was a Snorlax blocking my way again, and this time I wasn't going to use the blue flute. We were pushing through by force. Yes, this Snorlax was shiny, and no, I couldn't capture it because it exploded right in my face. Then it retreated back to the mountains, which was like 2 meters further, but hey, at least I could move further on to Route 13. That's where this girl went through this entire maze all the way at the other side of the route just to tell me that I shouldn't look at her again. As I defeated her, it was revealed that it was indeed not a maze because we could just walk over these fences. So I made the sign move out of the way to grab this odd candy that made it to Route 14, where we were introduced to the entire Poke Rap. Not by just one guy saying the lyrics, but a whole row of people, all working together, having 3 to 4 Pokemon each in the actual order of the original Poke Rap. If that wasn't cool enough already, all the Pokemon they use also have some kind of a reference added to them. I didn't understand most of them, but some of my favorite ones were this American-themed Butterfree, the Golden Duck from the Lemonade Stand song, KFC Moltres, Meowth turning into his actual balloon from the anime, Poliwhirl Swirl now being the polymerization card from Yu-Gi-Oh!, Starmie turning into Patrick from that one SpongeBob episode where they try to build a house, Mine Turtle from ASDF movie also making an appearance. There's so many other awesome ones, but at the end, they finish with a "That's all, folks." Going through the entire rap rewards you with an odd candy and the wonderful advice to never lose your childlike glee, because all art, no matter your skill, still has value. So I always try to create new things, because then you'll never truly be bored. I pick up the TM for rap, then get chucked over to the sandwich spot and talk to Brock, who was looking for his friend Ash that was apparently just going to watch a dance show and then meet up with him here. I'm not gonna tell him his friend is stuck in a sack, because he's always got his drying pan to keep him company. My dad was also working inside of this deli itself, but when I wanted to buy some ingredients, the chef told me I needed a sandwich case. So I guess we'll have to go looking for one. My search led me to Fuchsia City, where the gym had been revamped to the Seviper from the Battle Frontier. However, I couldn't reach it because an invisible object was blocking my way. We also entered the Safari Warden's house, who threatened me at gunpoint. Even though I didn't know what he was asking me, we got out of there alive and learned that there was an entire new business practice going around in town where people wanted to get rich quick by selling Slowpoke tails. They even gave me a free Slowpoke without one. Because of that, he had the attacks Whip, Slap, Payday, and he also couldn't evolve into Slowbro anymore. I then checked out the Pokemon that were on display here. We saw my dad, a Jigglypuff, their Chansey ran away, so now they have a brick wall here. This Wailord was single and looking. Let's just hope he doesn't meet the Skitty, because yes, if you didn't know, they are in the same egg group. They also had a Bouffalant, a very fancy Stakataka. Oh, and the local Pokemart was being accused for poisoning a bunch of people. I then tried to enter the Safari Zone, but I couldn't because I didn't have a sandwich case. This guy was feeling bad for me, which is why he gave me 29 Tauros, all boasting the most powerful attacks of Generation 1, Hyper Beam and Body Slam. With these bulls cramped in my PC, I traveled west to Route 18. Here we found a Zapdos Shrine, a cool looking floatstone, Patrick Star as a Pokédoll, and this old man tells me a story about the legendary tower across the ocean. They say a powerful bird Pokemon roosts at the top. Unfortunately, the tower has been sealed off for his entire lifetime, so he hopes that one day somebody will figure out how to get in, so he may finally get the answer he was looking for. With these binoculars, I then accidentally looked at a girl I shouldn't have looked at, so after another violent attack, we were on to Cycling Road. However, it was now a giant uphill battle that my Koraidon ended up losing. So I backtracked a bit to Route 17. Here we saw a little kid standing next to a sandcastle that was filled with children's skulls, so I'm expecting that this is a Palosand. Let's hope he doesn't swallow this little girl either. Further up on the beach, I also picked up a shelter, nearly got scammed by trying to buy this boat that couldn't even go on water for 1 million Pokédollars, and also found the Soda Pop house. Inside, we found the Is Celia town gym leader Buxy, who randomly showed up here after he used Retreat with his Scyther. I also battled a Skirt and these two little kids that suddenly turned into adults once the battle was over. As a gift for beating all the trainers, I was rewarded with gender fluid, so I decided to drink it and boom, I was suddenly a girl. You can do this as many times as you want in case you want to change what you look like. The lighthouse that was also located here was unfortunately closed due to a power outage, so nobody was allowed to enter, but you know, the lights were on, people were entering behind my back, so I think there might be something sketchy going on inside. The only other thing I learned about it is that there is apparently a very strong dragon-type Pokemon that lives on top of it, but I guess we'll have to try and find some other way to get in here. To figure out what I was supposed to do, I just started leveling up and evolving a bunch of my Pokemon. This got me Doduo's evolution Hitmonchan, modeled after the famous Generation 1 sprite, but also Nidorina, who would then evolve into Nidoqueen with the use of a Dawnstone. The same thing was true for Nidoking, but we also had Voltorp's new evolution, Jigglypuff from above, and Shellder that now turned into Slowbro with the use of a Water Stone. I also got Clefable, used my Floatstone to evolve Eevee into Latias. Ninetales now had a nice umbrella to protect itself from the rain. Execute's second evolution, Executor, had its head chopped off. With the Sunstone, we burned away Parasect's shell, but it also turned into an Ice Steel type, still making it 4 times weak to fire. The final evolution was Arbok turning into Seviper, which is indeed correct according to that one anime episode. Fion also learned a whole bunch of weird moves like P-Create before I would eventually find my sandwich case in Fuchsia. But in order to create one myself, I would need a lot of ingredients like bread, sesame seeds, meat, cheese, lettuce, and pickles. My scavenger hunt for the case itself just led me into a bigger one. Luckily, I could buy myself a piece of bread as well as a jelly donut inside of the deli, and also run into this sesame seed named Eric, who didn't want to come with me because he was soon meeting with his partner Sarah, but he doesn't know where she's gone off to. So I entered the Safari Zone to see if we can find her there. But they've got some very interesting guests right now. The DMCA, who go on to steal my TM case the moment I enter, because according to them, it's all trademarked property. A couple of seconds later, I then found the TM for a brick break, but I couldn't pick it up because my TM case just got stolen. They also enclosed this Kangaskhan because he was holding an illegal copy of himself. But hey, at least we found Sarah somewhere in a building here who told me I should go and get her husband. So with the help of false pretenses, I told Eric I'd take him to her, and just like that, we have acquired our second sandwich ingredient. Further up in the Safari Zone, Taunt blocked my way. There's also a 600-step maze that you can't get past because you only have a limited amount of steps inside of the Safari Zone. So I went to the other side to pick up a Water Stone, and just when I was about to get my HM for Serve, the guy told me I couldn't pick it up because I didn't have a TM case. At least I could buy my third ingredient for the sandwich here, cheese, out of the vending machine. Outside there was also a Squirtle that would always change into Ivysaur or Charizard the moment you re-entered this area, just like our starter evolves into them every single time he levels up. Luckily, with the help of Retreat, I could checkpoint, then skipped the maze straight after, which is where I found the fishing guru's brother, who told me his brother got locked up because apparently Dragonite is copyrighted material. From here on out, the step counter also breaks, so I can run around all I want. In the next area, this big space-time portal opened up. A bunch of weird Pokemon popped out, so the DMCA captured them and is now using them against me. It was then revealed to me that these were the classic Paradox Pokemon like Screamtail, Iron Feet, and my personal favorite, Iron Butt. At the end, there was also a joke about Relicanth never changing even with its Paradox forms, but then I reached the main stadium, where I got ambushed by two grunts and their leader, Dahlman. And he has had enough of me meddling in their takedown affairs, which is why he uses his illegal Pokemon, Iron Cleft, to attack me. They spam the attack Spiky Shield and follow him, so no matter what you do, your Pokemon is going to die the moment it clicks a move. So I was forced to find something that would bypass Protect. This puzzle had me stumped for quite a while, so I purchased some ethically sourced meat, cut down Oak again so I could enter this forest and save Loselle from this weird form of unknown that was attacking her. That gave me a new Dex entry as well as an odd candy just before I could figure something out. You see, there were a lot of clues around Dragonite, so I went over to Bill's house to fish up a horsey there who, believe it or not, then evolved into it. It was holding a magic muffler, the rarest item in Pokemon history. Smalland has an amazing video on it that you should definitely check out if you haven't already. Then I went through my items and saw that the Super Scope had some very interesting capitalized words, like Safari, which is where you normally find Dratini, so I used it on Dragonite and this made it evolve into Yoshi. He was the key to this puzzle because with the move Gulp, he bypasses Protect, eats up the enemy, and destroys them. Which is exactly what I did to defeat Dahlman and his Iron Clefts. He doesn't care, however. Our Pokemon was illegal and doesn't scare him. We'll need some real firepower if we want to get rid of the DMCA here. This is where I got stuck again, so I just started doing random things, like backtracking to our house to put a jelly donut in our fancy toaster, which then turned into a dash bun, which had some very fitting moves like bread butt, butter blade, pickle beam, and cheese dry. Our history books then gave Yoshi the ability to relearn ground pound, which we used in our Super Mario painting from the start to bring down a golden star. This not only granted me a star piece, but also a shiny Starmie with a very fitting ability and attacks too. I then went back to the Safari Zone, read up on the sign that said that some people lose their items inside of the underground path. That clue alone was enough for me to find the Warden's teeth. Naturally, we bring them back to him and now he can freely speak to me. Just like us, he absolutely hates that the DMCA is taking over his Safari Zone. He's too old to fight them all by himself though, which is why he hands over the gun he threatened us with earlier, so I have the real firepower to scare them off. The gun is a Remoraid with the attack Shoot and Mega Launcher as an ability. So we go back to the DMCA, fire off a couple of warning shots, and boom, they're gone. The Safari Zone is saved, and as my gift, the Fishing Guru's brother hands over my TMKs again. He also entrusts me with his family's heirloom, an old rod, which has apparently been burned down a couple of times throughout the generations by some house fires, so now it's just charcoal that boosts fire-type moves. But you know, there's not a lot of those in this game, so it's kinda useless. But now that we have our TMKs back though, we can head back into the Safari Zone, pick up our TM for Brick Break, and give it to the Kangaskhan so she can use it to free herself and her baby. After that bunch of nonsense, she's so happy she wants to join my team, which I obviously allow her to do. So now we can break all of these walls down ourselves and gain brick pieces from them. I knew there was another one in town, which allowed me to get an odd candy too, so after grabbing that, I went back to get my HM for Surf, which was now the TM for Payday because corporate thought an HM would not bring in as many people to the Safari Zone. This Chuckster must have also been very mad about that because he threw this little girl inside of the portal. Where did she end up? Who knows? Maybe we'll find out later. Right now, I was way too busy trading away my Slowbro for a Licky Tongue though. And guess what? He was hiding the pickles under his tongue the whole time. Now all we needed to finish our sandwich was a piece of lettuce, which we got after cutting down Professor Oak. I wouldn't go back to the cycling road to test it out yet though, because if you've been paying attention, you should realize that I totally missed out on the 4th gym badge in Celadon City. You'll never guess where Erica's gym was hiding. It was the last place I would ever check inside of the Pokemon Center up the stairs. Her entire gym has now been turned into an LGBT community, but just as we're about to take her on, the boss of the DMCA, Giovanni, walks in because he heard that there was copyrighted music playing in this place. As we know, that's not something he takes lightly. He plans to sue this place into the ground, which they can't afford because then they'll lose all of their funding for the shelter. So after hearing this, I step in to protect these people. But Giovanni doesn't play fair as he has a Wonder Guard Weezing with a Ghost Dark typing. Back in Generation 4, that was a combo that couldn't be beaten, but now we have Fairy type moves, which is why Bass licked it to death with his Fairy type tongue. So just like that, with the power of community, love, and a big tongue, the DMCA loses another battle and we gain the Rainbow Badge. Now we can not only use Fly outside of battle, but she also hands me the TM for Magical Leaf, which is going to be important later. In this moment, I also realized something special, because you see, back in Generation 1, there was this glitch that allowed you to fish and surf on statues, and those statues are now located at the start of every single gym, which is why I ended up using my fishing rod on it to grab a Tangela here. Because of this, I also wanted to see what other gyms had to offer. Inside of Lieutenant Surge's one, it was Raichu, Misty's had Starmie, and Brock's had Geodude, the Pokemon that was indeed way too rare for Rock Tunnel, so I immediately evolved it into Graveler. I don't exactly remember where we got it, but TM16 was suddenly in my inventory as well. But it wasn't in my TM case, so I just booted it up and it turned into a Gimmighoul. So I evolved my little coin friend into Goldengo, who now not only resembled the KFC mascot, but also had the bird ghost typing, but also learned the move Surf, so now we can finally cross water. Not that I could actually do that right now though, I still needed my 5th gym badge. The only other way I could go right now was to Cycling Road, so I fed Koraidon the sandwich, which just like in Scarlet and Violet, gives him enough power to zoom across Cycling Road in an instant. Yes, he even flew across this broken bridge in the middle. On the other side of the road, there were a bunch of police officers surrounding this girl's house. Apparently, it's because she committed one of the foulest crimes of them all: running without running shoes. Luckily, we arrived here on a bike, so the police didn't notice that we were doing the exact same thing, but she doesn't want me to get captured too, so she hands over the HM for Fly. The only way to use it is by capturing a Golurk in the grass here, which is also the only Pokemon that can learn Fly up until this point. It now has the power to drop us back off in Fuchsia City, so I can get past the invisible obstacle without actually having to get it out of the way. Normally the Move the Leader's house is here, but it got deleted. Brendan's mom also moved here from Hoenn, and it seems like she forgot her son. I also couldn't get up to his room because a strange tree was blocking the road, so instead I just stole her Machoke, who was holding the 3rd brick piece, then fished up a Venonat as well inside of the statue of the 5th gym, and then challenged Koga to a gym battle. However, in order to get through his gym, we could only pick 3 Pokemon. And it wasn't as simple as just trying to find your way through some invisible walls. Nope, this entire place was a big puzzle. It consisted of me having to defeat the Battle Frontier leaders, starting with Brandon and his pimped out Regirock. There are also cracks in the walls at certain places, nurses that will hear your Pokemon team, and of course Battle Frontier head Tucker with his electric type terrestrialized Wonder Guarded Shedinja that could only be defeated by a status move like Burn or Toxic, or a weather condition like Sandstorm. Speaking of that, Frontier Brain Greta had a sandstorming Hippopotas in her room, so we might have to bring that sandstorm over to Tucker's room somehow. Once we defeated her level 1 Aeron with Endeavor, my Pokemon got burned by a Dusclops in the next room, and it immediately got healed by one of the nurses in the next room. Then there was Janine with her Darkrai that could one-shot any of our Pokemon with Dark Void and Bad Dreams, but you can't put a Pokemon to sleep that's already burned, which is how I managed to defeat her eventually. Following up was the Shadow Triad, with a Greninja, Simisear, and Shedinja that all took themselves out. This place was modeled around the first gym in black and white, so when I pressed the fire icon, the grass door would open up. This would lead me to Lucy and her Trick Room team, which could naturally only be defeated by Pokemon that were slower. I don't think that's actually going to be possible, which means we'll have to find a way to paralyze our Pokemon to come back here. In a different room, there was also a Sudowoodo blocking the way, so I had to go all the way around to the right path to beat Spencer and his Reg Psychic. His defeat led to a room filled with girls that didn't want me to look at them, so when they spotted you, you got sent back to the start of the room. But once I made it through the maze, I was rewarded with a drill dozer. With it, we could fully break through the cracks in the walls, making a way for Hippopotas to enter Tucker's room, whose Shedinja would then feign to the sandstorm damage. That led me into finding a spare door as well as Elite 4 member Lance, who had been demoted from champion all the way to gym trainer. I get why though, he was using an illegal yellow Gyarados with Electrify, an attack that turns any of your moves into an electric type move. Because he has Volt Absorb as an ability, I just can't beat him. So I needed to find another way to get around this, by drilling another hole in a wall and placing down my spare door to get to the next room. Here I punted a Vulpix that was making it rain inside with a Drizzle ability through the hole, and Battle Frontier Head Norman would then destroy me with the Billion Lion versus all Pokemon argument. But I'm an avid believer that the Pokemon could actually beat the Lions, so I'm sure we'll find a way past this too, even if they use a Lion Ladder. The Vulpix was making it rain inside of the other room, which allowed me to fill up my Psyduck spray bottle to get rid of Imposter Oak yet again, who was boasting a Triginant, the newest member of the Reggie team. That led me to a room where a Dusclops could paralyze my Pokemon. With that status, I could now beat Lucy's Trick Room, but her Regieleki used agility that made it go so fast that it burst through the wall next to us into another room. The poor guy killed a Slowpoke along the way too, but at least we got ourselves an Iron Curtain while beating up this guy's Registeel, who for some reason hated this wallpaper. This Iron Curtain then allowed me to put it on top of another regular curtain inside of the gym room. Because fire is good against steel, it burns away through, so we can enter yet another secret room. That's where I can move a girl from left to right again, allowing me to open up a new path in the ice puzzle. That's where you get ambushed by Kate and the Rock in a double battle, where their Regigigas Wheezing combo not only destroys their own abilities, but also your team. So instead, I pushed the girl to the other side to block off Nolan's view, so now I got past him without having to beat the 1 billion lions. The door I went through next poisoned my team with a Dusclops, so now I could knock out both of my Pokemon, return to that double battle, because now they were forced to take me on one by one, allowing me to take on their Pokemon way more easily. Their warp then sent me straight to the second floor of the Celadon City department store. Here I bought the TM for Wonder Seed, an attack that changes the opponent's ability to Wonder Guard. With it, I got rid of Gyarados' Volt Absorb, killed it with a single hit, hopped over a ledge, made a look at me girl burst through a wall, followed the destroyed paths she created, remembered the secret message, and that's how we opened up the final door, which revealed the Devon Scope to me. With that item, I could reveal one last don't look at me girl in front of the final door, who had Reggie Eyes and Reggie Fisami. Upon defeating those, I get the rest of my team back and enter the room to fight Koga. Only he reveals himself not to be Koga at all, but instead, it's actually my dad. He's now the Fuchsia City gym leader. He forces me to battle against himself as he keeps on spamming Reflect, which in this game just straight up kills your Pokemon if you attack through it. Luckily, there's an attack we just got in the Safari Zone that can shatter screens like this. I'm of course talking about Kangaskong's Brick Break. He also has the same wheezing as Giovanni, which this time luckily just explodes. So in no time, I acquire the Dad Badge. Now we can explore the seas of Kanto. I start by going to the local Safari Zone to pick up an odd candy, then reveal the Jigglypuff that was blocking my way earlier with the Devon Scope, then headed down to the beach to see that Looker washed up on shore. He tells me he's an international police agent with the mission of delivering some very special cargo. But there's one problem. His position got compromised and he can't carry this any longer, which is why he hands over the Rotom Pokédex. Now we can access field moves directly from my PC box, so we don't have to take HM users in our party anymore. Looker then gets chased away by 3 Don't Look At Me girls, and that was the last thing we ever saw of that man. This entire sequence of events then leads us into Chapter 7, Too Much Water. That IGN review is going to haunt them forever. And me too, because as I said earlier, there's a lot more islands now than before. The first one I run into is the Whirl Islands. They can only be accessed by the HM Whirlpool. Unfortunately, there is only one guy in the entirety of Kanto with a Pokemon that knows Whirlpool. And he's such a big jerk that he only allows you to watch him use it. So we're probably gonna have to find a way to steal his Clamperl. A little further up, we would find the Seafoam Islands, and this is where the SS Anne is. Apparently, the captain just straight up crashed it in here, and it's been stuck here ever since. I even touched his butt before going inside of the Seafoam Islands itself, which is also where the entrance of the SS Anne was. So I plundered the kitchen there, grabbed a million berries, ate some flavored text off a plate, and met up with our friend Harry, who was just having a great time here with his buddy Radicate. Yeah, they might have been standing at a very high cliff, but I'm sure nothing bad is going to happen here. So I left him alone and tried to enter the captain's quarters, but along the way, I got ambushed by Barry. His lead was an Articuno with the attack Snowgrave, which will freeze any of your Pokemon in an instant so they can't attack. Not even ice types are safe from it. But the solution to this puzzle had already been found in the kitchen downstairs, in the form of a Berry, which will be used in battle for defrosting. With it, our Golur could easily escape the freeze and Shadow Punch down Articuno as well as the level 6 Wartortle again. After the fight, Barry tells me that the captain apparently has tons of experience at sea, so he doesn't understand why he crashed into this place. I guess we'll have to find out ourselves in a second, but when Barry runs off, we hear a sudden blow. When we go and take a look, Harry's Radicate is gone. He got bashed into a 437-foot drop, so yeah, that rat is dead. I just stood there at the railing and then left Harry be, because I just found out why the SS Anne is here. It's because the captain's blind. And it was his first day on the job too. He gives me the HM for cut and then invites me to search for the rest of his crew. I followed in his footsteps, saw Barry swimming down the drop, and learned that I needed the HM for strength if I wanted to continue this mission. So I went in search of that, and the first thing I found was this fisherman that fished up the dead Raticate and used it against me in battle. So naturally, we had to knock it out again, as well as beat up Radical Red, who was surfing in the middle of the ocean. I swear, the amount of times I've laughed during this game is insane. I absolutely love it. But let's continue onward, because I just found the first half of the third Pokemon sign, the bottom of an Onyx. Now we just need to find the top. I wouldn't find it immediately though, because first we would have to make a stop on 4 Island, which is now totally Sinnoh themed. We had a weird old guy inspecting my Pokemon's feet, a Luxray spamming his best move Thunderfang, bought a bag of feces at the Pokemart, got insulted by a Chatot, saw a Psyduck blockade, but then I got rejected by the Amity Square guard who told me none of my Pokemon were good enough. They were all ugly. The only ones allowed inside are Pikachu, Pachirisu, Emolga, and Trubbish. So we'll have to find one of those if we want to get in ourselves. Turn back cave, then made you turn back, of course. Just like Rock Tunnel, we also skipped through Mount Coronet, which allowed me to meet up with my dad, who says this place really makes the child in him come back to life. That explains why he's a Mime Junior now. Inside of the daycare, we saw some Furds doing the deed. There was also a little lake here with Mesprit on the inside, but when I talked to her, she went on to roam Sinnoh, which is unfortunately not here. The DMCA also shut down Paul Park because they allowed you to capture creatures with round objects, which is an idea that, of course, only belongs to the Pokemon Company. After saying goodbye to Lucas, we then surfed all the way to Minnesota. Here we not only met some Viking supporters, but also entered the local Walmart. The aisles here ran on forever, and the hamburger section was totally empty. But at least I was able to buy some cigarettes, a gun, and a Pepsi. I made a quick pit stop at the San Diego Zoo. This is where I admired a mongoose, my dad, and saw that someone stole 1 billion lions from this place last week. But it's fine, we already got to see those. I could also find literal seals in the grass here, but they weren't catchable. At least not until you broke their seal with an attack like Seismic Toss, which revealed that it was actually a Hoopa in disguise, which I was then able to capture. Lieutenant Surge also lives on this island. I went to visit his house, pressed a button that would open up the lock inside, grabbed a knot candy, and finally saw the episode of the anime that was banned from the rest of the country. And just like it did to a lot of people back in the day, it sent me to the hospital. But there's no free healthcare in Minnesota, which is why they take all of your money if you decide to heal your Pokemon here. My dad also ended up getting the flu, so he was hospitalized here. Another grandpa died in a bed, and Ash must have also escaped the suit sack because he was in a coma here having the strangest of dreams. On the island, there's also a gym. It's Planet Fitness, Yes, I don't know what this place is all about because I live in Belgium, but I've heard some pretty terrible things about it. To confirm those rumors, I signed my name 74 times and got myself the gym membership badge. I also attempted to pick some lockers, saw a rat running on a treadmill, didn't stand in line for the bench press, and saw this guy fly into a wall while he was trying to fight, which made the accidents boards go from 4 days to 0 days. I didn't want to get myself killed in here either, so I headed over to the Minnesota Laundromat, where we found a pair of socks, an especially clean oak, George Washington, and a pair of shorts. The outstanding dog Marin was also in town, so I ended up giving him a nice pat on the head and then visited Pittsburgh. There wasn't a lot to do here, so I just left, snatched up a Pokédoll sign from the ocean, saw a giraffe and a Ferrig before making it to 38 Island. Here I got chucked by some chucksters and Chuck himself, so that I could pick up another odd candy as well as a cream drop because all of the milk tank's milk was out. I picked up some milk drink for that extra calcium in my body, saw this Magmar use its favorite move, Headbutt, got threatened by Entei after calling him a legendary dog, plus we also grabbed a new team member in Magnemite on this island too. He was holding running screws which bolted away the moment I used them, but then I'd go back to the mainland to see whatever we may have missed there with Surf now being available. First thing was an odd candy inside of Pallet Town. This guy gave me the entire country of Kenya. With it we could run away to Victory Road, allowing me to already do some batch checks. That's how I got my hands on the first legendary I ever faced, Zapdos. It was holding the Instinct Seal, something I would need for a mission later on. But I couldn't move any further because the guards required me to have the Feather Badge of all things. Inside of Viridian Forest, I then fished up a shiny Sandshrew. An odd candy was also found in Mount Moon, as well as the Altar of the Moon from the Alola games. I couldn't activate it yet though, which is why we went to the back of Bill's house, which led me to Bill's garden. Here I picked up some Pokédolls and the last starter, Bulbasaur. If you moved a little further to the back though, there was this large PC. Bill locked a very special and rare Pokemon inside of the 4th box here. However, there was no way for me to turn it on right now, which is why we had to return here later. I accidentally ran on a spinning tile, which then whipped up my cream drop to an all creamy, which has been turned into a chocolate dark type. I then proceeded to pick up another odd candy while finding Rock Tunnel's Pokemon Center, pushed a DMCA grunt inside of a pond, and entered Silphco to start Chapter 7 Part 2, Cease and Desist. The place itself wasn't super big, at least not the one I could access right now. Yes, our dad was here in disguise, but I'd soon run into Giovanni who was trying to buy all of Sylph's intellectual property, something that would allow him to DMCA strike basically anything. Naturally, I couldn't let that happen, but he had a Genesect as his only Pokemon. Like with many other puzzles we've found so far, it has a Wonder Guard ability, meaning it can only be killed with fire-type attacks. No Pokemon learned though, so I was stuck again. I had to go do something else if I wanted to get past here. Instead, I found another odd candy, surfed over to Great Bay, where a Nosepass ended up drowning somewhere at sea. I guess David Hasselhoff was too late to save him. Anyway, eventually we reached the desert, where a man needed the Steel Wing HM in order to remember something. There was also a bus parked here with the number 572 engraved in it. I didn't know what that meant, so this girl filled up my pockets with heaps and heaps of sand. It started crawling in all the places I didn't want it to be, so I took out my anger on this guy that wanted me to do exactly 49 damage on his Yamask so he could evolve it, but I just killed it instead. I also found the remains of Relic Castle, which never should have been shut down. In the desert, I also found one last piece of candy, and then we moved over to, yes, you guessed it, yes. Inside of the Poké Center, I just kept on mashing A so that my Pokemon would get healed, but the lady behind the counter knew what was happening, and they punished time wasters here by attacking them with an Indeedee. This entire place is basically just filled with yes and no puns, like one about missing no at the end of its name. Then there's also this lady who wants to give you a free Chansey, but only if you say yes. Unfortunately, without the Y on your keyboard, you're not gonna be able to do that, so we'll have to find that button somewhere. Brendan was also here. His parents did indeed forget him, but instead of moving back with them, he just wants to stay here while I go and get his hat for him, even though he already has 12 identical copies of his favorite hat. I then made it into the Celadon sewers where I ate Grandpa's toast, plus we could also reach the tower from before with the legendary Pokemon roosting on top. However, the entrance was still sealed off, but the puzzle to open it up became a lot clearer once I surfed down. Here we had 3 holes in the shape of certain things. You had a square one, a triangle one, and then another one in the shape of this girl. I thought we needed to put things into the corresponding holes, but that didn't turn out to be the case. First, I had to ride this moving van into the square hole, then the girl needed to go into the square hole too, but I still didn't find anything triangular here. But it will definitely show itself if we complete more side missions, so let's go and do that. So instead, I went to the Pirate Bay. Here I got a hint that we would someday have to use rock climb. I also found an odd candy here, as well as the same guy that tried to scam Professor Oak at the start of the game with his computer, now putting a duplicate of his scam into messages in bottles. We can also download free potions, which infects the user with Pokérus. This Coffagrigus was missing 3 crucial letters. A Psyduck sold me lemonade, and then we got the answer to Giovanni's puzzle. A burn drive. It changes the type of Genesect's signature move Technoblast to whatever drive you have. Considering we have the fire type one, we should be able to kill it somehow. All we need to do is use his Technoblast against him. Currently, the only way I knew how to was if we were able to transform our Pokemon into his Genesect. And what Pokemon can change into any other Pokemon? That's right, Mew. With Surf now in our hand, we can search under the van in Vermilion City Port. But like everything in this game, nothing is what it seems like, because it's actually just a Ditto in the form of a Mew, and its sprite consists of tons of bricks when you put it in the PC. I'm sure we won't need that for anything later either. Luckily, Ditto can still transform, which should allow us to clear the Giovanni puzzle whenever I want to. We weren't going to yet though. I wanted to search around some more. This when this don't look at me girl jumped into the water, which is actually the first time she didn't get to me. I nearly got killed by this shark with laser eyes. This shiny Magnemite trolled me by running away the moment I threw a ball at it. I think we might need Magnet Pull to get that one. I placed my Team Instinct badge on the Zapdos shrine, which unlocked something that we'll find out later. Got dizzy due to this entire house being filled with spinning Spindas, and then stumbled upon a place called Half Island, which had the population of 1 short and 1 hoot. Those were the only things here, so shortly after I'd reached 2 Island. The entire thing seems to be themed into a video game. I'm guessing either Earthbound or maybe Undertale, but it was definitely something I personally never played before. I mean, the currency here was different because they were selling houses for actual dollars, not Poké dollars. I couldn't buy anything at the mart either, but I did get myself a free hamburger. I found a Bagonite, which is the new mega evolution of Bagon, Dragonite. Inside of the local hotel, there was also an unlimited money glitch where I would call my dad, he'd deposit $5,000 into my account, and I could just keep on repeating this over and over again. So with this unlimited money method, we could now also buy unlimited rare candies if we wanted to. I couldn't book a bed here however, so they told me to get the fuck out. I tried sleeping in their economy class, but it was just a bed painted on the floor. One of the packages on this island also killed me because there was a bomb inside, then kept on buying for sale signs from this guy. Once I was all out of money, I tried to steal this mysterious guy's burn heal. He did not like thieves at all, so he attacked me with a special Sans-themed Kecleon, a Pokemon that dodged any attack I threw at it and killed every single one of mine with Gaster Blaster. I guess I shouldn't try to steal from that guy anymore. Instead, I explored the rest of the island where I found a pencil that could apparently be erased in some way, and I also danced to some salsa with these Pokemon here. Besides that, I couldn't do anything else, which is why Sophocles led me around his very own private island. Even though there was only 2 houses that were here, it still took him hours to guide me around, which I think is a dig at Ultra Sun and Moon. So I made sure to never return here again. Our next stop on this journey was Zero Island, where we finally found what the Zapdos shrine did, lighting one of these pedestals fires. There were 2 more shrines that needed to be lighted here too, but I'm guessing we'll need Articuno and Moltres if we want to unlock what this island has to offer. Further south is Pokemon Island. Here there was a lab that hosted a guy named Todd. He was researching the 7 Pokemon signs, and considering we had only found 2 of them, this mission wasn't complete yet either. His partner was Professor Ivy though, and she asked me if I wanted to go and get the GS ball from Professor Oak, as she would need it for some of her research. My dad also worked here as a Pokemon model from time to time, but Oak himself didn't want to give me his GS ball because it was way too plot relevant. So instead, I sailed my way over to Cinnabar Island, home of Blaine's gym and what should have been the Pokemon Mansion, but that doesn't seem to be anywhere around. I'm sure it has nothing to do with this weird ritual someone was trying to complete inside of a basement. All they needed to complete it was push this big button, but there were many signs telling him to not do that. So let's just hope he tries to not ignore those. It wouldn't be Cinnabar if we couldn't fish up a missing no here. There's also a colorblind house and a chuckster that was protecting the island from Absols. You know, the Pokemon that indicates whenever a natural disaster is going to be brought down somewhere. But hey, I guess he's just keeping the island safe this way, right? No problem. This random man also climbed on top of Blaine's gym, however we couldn't enter it ourselves considering the door was locked and the key was shaped in the form of a burn heel. I guess we literally need a burn heel if we want to challenge Blaine now. We then stole this fisherman's Pokédolls and went straight to the lab. There were tons of professors occupied with their research, so I ended up killing one of them. This opened up the room where a guy asked me to go and grab the old amber for him so he can turn it back to life. Before I do that, however, this tree from Pokemon Sword and Shield offered to combine my fossils into a new being. So I handed over the Jaw and Helix fossil, which allowed him to create the abomination that is Tyrannostar. I guess this is really what they did in Pokemon Sword and Shield. Speaking of those games, we had Swordbirth, Shieldfuck, and even their third brother, Gunhead here too. I don't know what the sign pointing to the Shelgon was all about, but I did have a very cool meeting with Steven Stone, who has really embraced his own personality, which was lovely to see. This girl wanted to trade away her Haunter for a Raichu, so I knew I needed to go and fetch a couple of things if I wanted to complete the lab. First, I'd cut down some scientists inside of Pewter City Museum so I could get the old amber. While I was going to pick up Raichu from Lieutenant Surge's gym, I found the third Pokemon sign, the head of the Onyx we found earlier. The man at the lab then revived our old amber but didn't want to give it to me because it was a scientific breakthrough, which is why I cut him down too to claim Sudowoodo as my newest team member. I then traded away my Raichu for a Haunter, which naturally doesn't evolve because of the Everstone meme in Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, but Haunter was holding a very interesting item, the B button, which I'm sure we'll have to insert somewhere. I also fished up Love Disc in a very hard to find spot and got all sorts of hints from the people around as to how to evolve it. It unfortunately didn't break through my thick skull in how to do it though. I also beat up this weird looking Tyrogue, saw a lot of Pokemon that were having fun with each other, a disappointed Skitty, a man that was locked up at sea, who's probably been here for years at this point because he didn't believe I was an actual human being. Bulbasaur, the first Pokemon in the Dex, then evolved into Venusaur, the last Pokemon in the Dex. With that evolution done, I knew it was finally time to take on Giovanni at Sylph Co. I did exactly what I told you guys. Used my Ditto to transform, and with the Burn Drive, our Techno Blast easily killed his Genesect. He says it's not fair, I copied him. Do we not understand that all art is made for businesses and corporations to make money? No, Giovanni, that is absolutely not the case. Get out of here because the president of Sylph Co just gave me a Mr. Ball. The only way to capture my own family members. Before I use it though, let's explore the rest of this company. They had some questionable technology here, like being able to talk to a Pikachu, most of their work being done by Pampors, Chucksters throwing monitors out of the window. Luckily, it wasn't the computer itself, otherwise the work would all be gone. One of the elevators also got erased right in front of my face. There was a banned Torchic chicken nugget game. This man wasted his Master Ball on a Wish Cache, just like in the anime, and then pushed a girl onto a teleporter just to get Kurt's attention, then we pushed her out of the window. But hey, at least we can buy some pretty damn cool Pokeballs here now, like Love Balls, Blue Balls, and even Slugma Balls. But the main thing was a big mushroom that actually turned into an Amoonguss once you bought it. On one of the lower floors, we saw the PC that got thrown out of the window, a department of youngster Joeys talking about their Rattatas to customers, and the most marketable man of all time, the champion of Galar, Leon. But you know who's a close second? Another one of my rivals, Larry. He was already late for his job, but still decided to attack me anyway with this Lugia and Wartortle that didn't have a puzzle in it for some reason. So we easily won and got our HM boy Bidoof as a reward. We also found an elevator filled with rats. One of the other teleporters brought me back to Sabrina's gym, where we saw that all of my rivals already beat this place, but another grandpa fell victim to game mechanics here too. This entire sequence led me into the final part of the DMCA law offices, where I pick up TM41 Copycat. Then we backtrack to Route 2 to grab myself another family member by capturing a Mr. Mime with a Mr. Ball, just so I could immediately trade her away for an Abra, who would first evolve into Alakazam that learns the move Double Dip, and then back into Mr. Mime. So no matter what, you'll have family by your side. Now that we had defeated the DMCA, every single house in Saffron City was open again. One of the houses hosted a family that lost their daughter named Copycat. So I booted up my TM for it, and poof, she just popped out. She does indeed copy everything you say, and as a reward, you not only get a bunch of Pokédolls from the top floor, but also a Mimikyu that's now disguised as a Clefairy. I can then repeat this entire sequence again, but upon heading outside, the house changes into a railway station. This takes you to 38 Island, where you pick up the Golden Rod. It's not only a beautiful city in Johto, but you can also use it to fish up Goldeen's, the only Pokemon that allows you to use Waterfall. So I do exactly that, evolve her into Seeking, and then head over to the fighting dojo in town. Here we fought a whole bunch of weird Porygons, found the TM for Game Genie, and even battled this stupid ROM hack itself. It tried to softlock me, but that didn't end up working out. Even after the last nerd's defeat though, they still didn't want to give me the gym badge because the biggest nerd would still have to be faced. So I jumped into the very fancy NES system in the back and ended up in Elite Four member Bruno's room. He got demoted to a lowly gym leader and says we're never going to beat him because his entire team is now immune to physical attacks. Yeah, they were all Onyxes and my dad killed them all with Double Dip. Also, our dad is a woman. This not only nets me a second boulder badge, but also another TM for Bide. I then left Nerd Bruno all by himself, but the moment I returned to the gym, everyone got killed by the Friday the 13th Halloween villain. So we defeated him with a Hadouken combo and fished up a Hitmonchan out of the statue. I also talked to this reporter who wanted me to get him undeniable proof of aliens that exist. The only alien I knew of was Mewtwo, who should be at the back of Cerulean Cave, which you can now enter with our new Waterfall HM. I had no idea they had turned this place into a pants hideout because I was fighting shorts, jeans, and all other sorts of Pokemon that had bottoms on. Even my dad was a proud member of the Shorts gang, but that didn't stop me of getting all the way to the end, where I'd find and capture the legendary Pokemon Arcanine. There was also a random Remoraid in here screaming gang violence as well as an odd candy, so I picked those up and went back to Brendan's new house to pick up his hat after watering another imposter oak out of the way. I connected my GBA to his GameCube while I was inside as well, which got me the mythical Pokemon Jirachi. I proceeded to give Brendan his hat back, and in return he gave me a letter for Steven Stone. He then gave me the Steel Wing item, which we also need to go and deliver back at the desert, but for now we're going to leave this trail cold because I kind of forgot about it while I was playing. Instead, I flew to the Aether Paradise, where I had to chop off an Executor's head with guillotine just so I could enter it. This place is normally the hideout of Team Skull, but now the DMCA has intruded, and they have the original Team Skull to back them up. First we defeat Zubat and Coughing from Mystery Dungeon, but then we run into their boss, Skuntank. As we all know, it's a poison dark type, but now it's holding an air balloon and it has the ability Wonder Guard. I absolutely had no idea how to beat this thing, so I'm sorry Guzma, you and your goons are going to have to suffer a little longer. This guy wanted me to help him find Groudon, but there was nothing around. Luckily, I was able to find my fourth Pokemon sign in this Kingler that had been created over millions of years of evolution. On Pokemon Island, I also found another odd candy, wondered what this guy was thinking about, while the Furrets had done the deed to create their newest child, Sentret, who were now all walking together. On 4 Island, I witnessed how slow Diamond and Pearl health bars go down, while also flying to the Pokemon Center here, which is the only way to get to this side of the island, to meet up with Celia Dawn, but also grab myself a seal case. The Don't Look At Me girl from before popped out of the water anyway to attack me, I also went up the waterfall on Route 2 where I got told to stand under the waterfall for 3 minutes for a secret. In the meantime, there were also a couple of Starman memes that I didn't understand, but eventually, once those 3 minutes were over, I would enter the house of the Pledge Man, who can teach all of your starters the moves Grass Pledge, Water Pledge, and Fire Pledge. Somewhere along the way, I also found a Moonstone which evolved my Grimer into this weird looking muck. Most Pokemon also evolve into Krabby at level 55 like my Ammonite here, because crabs are of course the pinnacle of evolution. I then went back to Silphco to give this guy a hamburger so he'd give me a pencil eraser. This allowed me to erase the pencil on Island 2, where I met up with the Berry Powder's man only good friend, the Mushroom Maniac. He asked me what he was doing, so I told him he passed away a couple of months ago. And to pep me up, he ended up giving me an Oddish. This is the only Pokemon that can learn Magical Leaf, an attack that can actually never miss. So with my new little plant friend, I went back to Sans and stole his Burn Heal. Now his Kecleon couldn't dodge my move anymore, we killed it, and the Burn Heal is finally mine. Before I entered Blaine's gym though, I noticed that one of the people in the Pokérab forgot a Pokemon. Cubone, so I showed it to her and this got me a free shiny Cubone. Now let's slot that key in place and finally enter Blaine's gym. First thing I did was fish up this Rhydon and aim for its horn with my Pokeball just to capture it. Then I got attacked by all the fire type Flint loves to use in Diamond and Pearl. And even though Tombstoner is now a TM, you still have to answer that question wrongly if you want to get the Blaine right at the end. Yeah, we might have dropped some people in the lava, but they'll be fine. Our friend with the 6 shades doesn't just battle you though, because he will ask you simple Pokemon trivia questions. Then you need to answer with the Pokemon in your party that will then have to complete a certain battle as a puzzle. The first question consisted of me having to show him the first Pokemon in the Dex, which was Bulbasaur. Mine had already evolved, so we have a quick intermission, grab a new one, and return it for the fight against his beta Arceus. It always clicks first impression, so all I had to do was click Baneful Wunker once so the poison damage would take it out. The second question required me to use a Pokemon that had the name of a famous martial artist in its name against him. I tried Hitmonchan, but that didn't work. I actually needed Hitmonchan, which we already had, but I forgot about it. So instead, I flew around the map for more clues and ended up at the power plant. Inside, we saw a ton of power plants, but also a guy named Dazzle that wanted to trade a star piece for one of his badges. So I gave him the one that I collected in Mario's World, and I got the Power Bounce badge in return. This was another one I needed to get through to Victory Road. This other guy then asked me to bring him a Magnemite because that's the way they evolve in this game. You need to combine them together, but by the time I got mine, he had already evolved his with someone else, which caused mine to get so depressed he evolved into Magnalone. It even learned Real Tears and Cry Attack while having the ability as one. I feel bad for this little fellow, but at least he has a ton of Pokemon in my boxes that can keep him company. The power plant was also broken, and we had the only answer to fixing it, the B button I got from Haunter, so we placed it in the right spot, mashed it a dozen times, and charged everything back up. This summoned the eco-friendly Pokemon Eternatus. So I captured that in my Pokeball, which was something Leon could never do. Then I headed out back for another entrance into Rock Tunnel, which is where the convention of the furries was. Here I saw a confused Lucario because some guy asked him where he got his costume, but we also saw our 5th Pokemon sign, this Electivire Shadow. I could then head back outside where an electrician told me that the lighthouse was back in business. Before I checked it out though, I beat up the balloon Pokemon in front of the Pokemon Center and grabbed a second Clefairy who had evolved into Clefable while I had a party slot free, so that at the same time I could acquire Clefable's Shadow, Gengar. Now I could head back to the lighthouse. And yes, the girl did get eaten by the Palossand. There was also a grandpa that planned on climbing to the top of this lighthouse. Let's hope nothing bad happens to him. The lowest floor of the building was a dedicated trading station. That's where a little kid was wonder trading away his Pokemon and kept on getting Caterpies. But I also partook in a scam where 2 guys wanted to see if they could get any rare Pokemon, so I entrusted my team members to them so they could get better ones for me. Unfortunately, every single time I tried this technique, I would just get my own Pokemon back. But like this, I could actually get the trade evolutions done for Golem and Machamp. All I had to do was just give both Pokemon up and then have a gun in my party so that I could shoot off Graveler's arms and give them to Machamp. The latter also had the ability No Guard, which is going to be super useful in some of the upcoming fights. I could then climb up that lighthouse, drop down a couple of times to grab myself an odd candy, and landed on top of this grandpa's head. And all the way at the top, I would fight the fabled dragon, Ampharos. I trapped its beautiful white locks into my balls forever, then jumped out of the window and landed on Grandpa again. May he rest in peace. Ampharos also gave me an entire new HM move, Illuminate, which works just like Flash. There were not a lot of dark areas I knew of, except for the underground path. So I lit that up and found a secret passageway that led me to some very fancy barbers. They, despite never cutting somebody's hair, wanted to give my Pokemon a haircut. I gave them a shot at Ampharos, which turned it into this very naked version of itself. It gained the attack Cotton Gone and the ability Nudie, but the second haircut brother wanted something special, a Pokemon with hair that was untangleable. So I gave him the most constricted Pokemon I could think of, Tangela. Lo and behold, that turned it into this cute charm Trubbish. Another thing occurred to me while I was down here. I still needed to check out Satupolis City, because now that I had Surf, I could see what the rest of the city had to offer. First thing was the Cave of Origin of Life. Here I found Onyx and the Censored Cloister, but also a ruby that I didn't really find a purpose for. This cave then led me to Birth Island, where I needed to complete the Deoxys puzzle, but instead of an alien showing up, the triangle actually flew back to the Great Bay. I wouldn't head back there immediately though, because first I witnessed this contest where the judge loved exploding fortresses just a little too much. But the main thing in Satupolis is of course the gym. Inside we met the famous Team Sky, and their leader was not MNJTV, but Faulkner. He's very mad at society because everybody calls him the worst gym leader. But he's found a solution to that, evolving his actual Pokemon. Not that that really helped because his Pidgeotto and Pidgeot still got one shot. Even though he lost, he's still going to partake in an old Johto tradition, not giving me the gym badge. The only way he'll admit defeat is if we meet the legendary bird Pokemon that's roosting on top of the tower in Great Bay. As I was surfing over there, I ran into the map designer's house, Starlight, who had some crazy rooms in her house. My favorite one of them all was this one where we could dance with our dad dressed as Mirror B. I would then run into the triangle from before, who would not go into the triangular hole but yet again into the square one, which opened up Sky Tower. First thing we saw here was Pokemon taking the personality quiz, rooms filled with traps that would explode, lower your PP, and teleport you around. One of them even put me in front of a Kecleon shop, but we didn't have any Pokédollars to buy his goods. This bully Gyarados blocked the way for me and all the other Pokemon inside of the tower, so I needed to find a way past him. So to get some backup, I joined Wigglytuff's guild, who gave me a friend area, but they also claimed 90% of the Pokédollars that I just found inside of this Bill doll. After they took their cut, I was only left with 500. That was enough to buy Kecleon's money orb, which would then give me 5,000 Poké, so I could buy his second item, a Joy Seed. I floundered into the Gyarados, it leveled him up and evolved him into Magikarp, so now the way upstairs was cleared. On floor number 2, I got myself the last Oranberry from this Kecleon merchant, saw Team Fortress and Team Fortress 2, which was an honor. The statue of my dad then made me feel very calm. Frostlass faced through some walls. There was a giant wide version of Oak, but I couldn't get past the Sentry Diglett because only Pokemon were allowed past that point. If you ever wondered what Diglett looks like all the way at the bottom, this is it. Can't be disappointed with that, right? Anyway, I was absolutely stumped with the puzzles in here and couldn't seem to find a way to turn myself into a Pokemon, not even by taking the quiz or anything. But I did know this stupid ROM hack always has tons of shortcuts available, so I just started running against every wall, and guess what? That actually worked. It let me move on to the upper floors. On floor number 3, there were a couple of puzzles involving a monster house, another Kecleon that wanted me to sell this orb, and a Drampa that was 30 years old. I didn't find a way to get past these either, so I just found another shortcut and made my way to the top, where the legendary bird that everybody was talking about is revealed to be Pidgey. No wonder Pidgeot and Pidgeotto were so bad compared to this. I naturally ended up capturing it, showed it to Faulkner. That made him realize he should have never evolved his Pokemon. Oh, and he also admitted defeat, so we got the feather badge and moved further through our badge check. A girl named Luca tried to go up the stairs here, but couldn't because she's in a wheelchair. Honestly, the Pokemon League should really think about stuff like that. But we also acquired a Ratstone here, which allowed me to evolve my Rattata into Raticate. It now has a sturdy ability and only 1 HP. One of Professor Oak's aides also wants to entrust you with Rock Smash here, but only if you complete the Pokédex, so we'll have to return here once that's done. To try and fill it out some more, I went back to 4 Island. The Machamp we got earlier now has access to Rock Climb, which means we can get up to this tiny ledge. That's where we could find a special normalized rock and a ton of Eevees dancing around it. So I took one of my own, leveled it up here, and it turned into Salacion. It gets all kinds of moves related to the town, and even the ability Townload. But if that wasn't enough, I also slattered some honey on top of a tree here. That let me get a Smeargle who dipped his tail in the honey. I didn't exactly know what to do with these Pokemon, so for now I just retreated to Blaine's gym because I finally realized that Hitmonchan was in my boxes all along. He had to beat up an Onix, which as we know is immune to physical attacks. Luckily, we had Special Punch to take it out. For the third question, I needed to give him a Pokemon that was a palindrome. So its name needs to be the same forwards and backwards. The only one I could think of was Eevee, but he would attack you with a Malamar that immediately maxed out all of its stats. I tried a couple of times but couldn't find a way to beat it, so I leveled Eevee up to level 100 and gave it the move Counter, which ended up working out pretty damn well as it was able to defeat Malamar. For the fourth question, I needed to use a Pokemon with a population of over 10 million people. I knew it wasn't going to be Salation Town, and the only country I had in my PC was Kenya, which also turned out to be the answer. With my country, I needed to fight the UK, who tried to colonize me. That switched his Toxic Berry down to me, which would have killed me if we didn't have the attack Bestow, which gave it back, and the moment he used Tea Time would then be his own demise. Question number 5 asked me who defeated Zane during Smash Summit 7. I didn't actually know the answer, but the only Smash Bros character I had was Jigglypuff, which ended up being right. All I had to do was use Up Throw and Rest, which ended up killing his Nickit, which I guess has something to do with the title being stolen unfairly, but again, I don't know what this is all about. Question number 6 had me reading some of the Bible verses of our help menu, specifically the word Among Us, which only made me think of one Pokemon, Amoonguss. Of course, I was right with that one, so I used Camouflage on his Imposter Deoxys and then mimicked his Revelation Dance for the kill. The 7th question asked me what Pokemon evolved in a trait evolution on this island, which ended up being Raichu into Meowth. With my cat, I then needed to destroy his Gorgeist by using Curse after it turned me into a Ghost type with Trick or Treat. On to the final question, showing him the last Pokemon, Venusaur. This is where he'd bring out another version of Arceus that always went for me first. There was only one way to defeat this fight, and that was going with Final Gambit, so it copied me, which would then knock itself out. Considering it only had 1 HP, we also really didn't take any damage. For defeating Blaine, I get the Volcano Bake Meat badge as well as a TM for Hydro Pump, which I shouldn't teach to a water type Pokemon. Yeah, I'm guessing this is the first fire type attack we get, now that all of the fire type puzzles are over. But our journey on Cinnabar doesn't end here, because in that moment, a huge explosion happens outside, so now we're forced to go through the main entrance just to witness that not only the volcano erupted, but also Pokemon Mansion showed up? There's now a Moltres shrine here too. Naturally, I went on to investigate the mansion immediately. Inside, we found logs about Mew being pregnant and giving birth. I also activated this Nintendo Switch, which caused me to fall into lava and die. I picked up the theme for Focus Miss. In the basement, we saw a whole bunch of things go up in flames, like one of the professors, a book, this guy that was roasting marshmallows. But you know what? Red Eyes didn't. He liked the heat. According to Tabitha, the volcano will erupt again in 2 years, but I'm certainly hoping to be done with this game by then. In the deepest parts of the mansion, I found myself a Moltres egg. Once it was done hatching, I captured the KFC bird and picked up the Firestone right behind it. With Moltres now by our side, I could activate its shrine, evolve it with a Firestone into Flareon. Plus, I found out why this entire sequence of events ended up happening. It's because this guy in the basement ended up pressing that button, even though there were so many signs telling him not to. But hey, I'm actually quite happy about it. Otherwise, we couldn't have gotten all of these Pokemon, nor this odd candy at the end of the cave. Anyway, now we could head back to Viridian City because the gym has finally opened up, which enters Chapter 8, Non-Stupidity and Sense. Inside, the first grunt tells me that we're 10,000 miles away of stopping the DMCA. Then we literally get teleported 10,000 miles away into space. This is where we face off against the first admin we ever faced, Wolf. And he's back for revenge. He now has a Mega Steelix to intensify gravity, which means none of his ground type moves will ever miss. He only uses one of those though, Fissure. an attack that will now always go first and never miss. None of my flying or levitate mons could avoid this move, so there had to be another way for me to get past it. I just knew I hadn't acquired it yet. Luckily, at the start of the gym, there's this random guy who always gives you hints about where to go to complete the fights inside of the gym, because these are some of the hardest puzzles in the game. He told me I would find what I was looking for inside of Aether Paradise, but I still needed to find a way to beat that skunk tank if I wanted to get through it. I just started spamming all types of moves until Infestation just randomly killed it. They must have messed with the type chart because normally bug type attacks are not super effective against skunk tank. But I'm not gonna complain, because now we could move further in where I'd see Nebi the Cosmog. We had to take it to the Altar of Moon inside of Mount Moon. But unlike regular Pokemon, this one travels inside of your bag, and it hates it. So every time I tried to leave the room, he would escape, which is why I stored it inside of the PC, withdrew it at the Altar of the Moon, and activated the ritual, which pulled me into this black hole. It spewed me out to this weird place in space that had a gigantic earthworm protecting it. Once I captured it though, the solution became clear, because its ability Earth Eater doesn't let it get hit by ground type attacks like Fissure. I took it back to the gym, and not only did we eat up the attack, but we also ate up the entire rock that Wolf was standing upon. So now it was on to room number 2, where Kaiba placed down a duel arena for me to battle Susan in. The rules from Pokemon get thrown out of the window here, because she has 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons. The only Yu-Gi-Oh related Pokemon I so far captured was Hoopa. So I came in, used its signature attack Trump Card, which assembled all of the pieces of its unbound form and obliterated the dragons. This not only sent Celia back to the Shadow Realm, but also me to the 3rd room. That's where I would meet up with Lars, and his Pokemon was Neopets, an old Flash game that I never played myself, but it did kill every single one of my Pokemon with the attack Adobe Flash. I thought maybe my 6 Shades would be able to block it, but that wasn't the case. However, the Pokemon that was using Flash earlier on in the Lieutenant Surge gym fight was Porygon, so it probably had something to do with him. The hint I got this time told me to go back to Vermilion City to talk to the fishing guru. So I traveled back there, trapped a seal inside of my seal case to get another Pokédex entry, and then proceeded to hand over my trainer ID to the guru. In return, he gave my PC a ton of virus wallpapers to look at, like rare Pokemon in my area, congratulations to our 1 million visitor, but the one I actually needed was the error screen of Windows, because the moment I put my Porygon inside of that virus, he would evolve into Porygon X, who with his HTML5 ability is indeed unaffected by Adobe Flash. So after sending him out and blasting it away with a single tri-attack, we were on to the next room. This is where we met up with Light and Dark Gary, who only had 2 rules: love America and no copyright. I don't understand why they were in the form of Bonsleys though, but their Pokemon consisted of Braviary and Butterfree, the icons of American culture. They would protect themselves with the Pledge of Allegiance and then shoot you because you couldn't attack through it. Naturally, I knew I needed a pledge of myself, which is why I went back to the Pledge Guru and made sure I had all 3 attacks on my team. I then combined my water and fire pledges together to create a rainbow that would swoop the 2 away. Now let's drink some Victini Martini and enter room number 5, where I was met with my uncle from Nintendo, Mr. Rhyme. He heard some terrible rumors, and if they were true, we would no longer be related. That would be terrible, but not as terrible as him spamming Auroraville in this fight, which will kill all of my Pokemon instantly. The only reason he's able to use this attack though is because there's a snower in the back leaking out snow through a brick wall. I used 4 of my 5 bricks to patch things up, but I was still missing 1. As usual, we had to go and complete other puzzles in order to get past this one. So first I ended up capturing a Persian inside of the statue of the gym. I then leveled up my Zapdos once so it would evolve into Jolteon. Made a quick pit stop down at the museum for an odd candy while also toasting my jelly donut with the afterburners of this rocket ship. Drilled a hole through my own wall, which didn't serve much of a purpose. But you know what did? Smeargle, because it gets one special signature move: Sketch. That allows it to not only copy but also learn any of the moves your opponent uses. And guess which HM move we can't use yet? Whirlpool. So I used it to steal it from this guy, and boom, just like that, I could enter the World Islands. Inside, we not only found the One Piece after breaking down this brick wall, but also a whole set of kimono girls with their level 100 Orikorios. I knew they had the ability Dancer, which lets them copy any dancing move and use them in the same turn, so I clicked Lunar Dance with my Jinx, and that's how they just took themselves out. Once they were defeated, I was able to capture the last legendary bird, Articuno. With that showcase of strength, they also rewarded me with the title Bell. Moments after, Articuno evolved into Vaporeon with the help of leveling up once. I would activate the last shrine outside, and that opened up the cave on Zero Island. You're never gonna guess what we found inside. The 0th Pokemon Victini. It might not add a number to our Dex total, but I'm sure we're going to need it for a different kind of puzzle. Sadly enough, the One Piece didn't fit in my brick wall, but I did realize that I still needed the HM for strength. So I went back to Planet Fitness and skipped the row for the bench press with Retreat, which ended up making me so strong I couldn't only push boulders around but also blind captains. Yeah, I had to guide this guy through an entire maze, which also allowed me to pick up Mega Kick, by the way, a very important TM. My brain did almost break due to these ice puzzles, but eventually we were able to push him down another hole, which allowed him to find his long lost crew. A whole bunch of Spheals, as well as a Celia themed Spheal, who created an entire bridge for me to cross this water gap. Because of their teamwork, I managed to get to the other side, break down this last brick wall, which released a plague of Zubats down on the Kanto region. I even ended up capturing one of those. The room that they came out of had only one thing in it, and that was the Braille for W. I didn't know what to do with that information yet. So instead, I went back to the 8th gym, used my brick piece to seal up that wall, and now my uncle couldn't spam Aurora Veil anymore. My Jinx blasted him with a Sunbeam, and that was that. We could move on to room number 6. Conveniently, that's the 6th gym leader, Sabrina, whose gym got shut down due to copyright. Her Kadabra one-shots everything with Kinesis, and the only way to get past it is with a Dark type. This game only had one of those, and conveniently, it was already in my boxes. Get your sweet tooth ready, cause I savored this victory with Alcremie's Syrup Bomb. This turned Sabrina into a doll that had her head removed and teleported me to the 68th Trivia Quiz-Off. I was here competing with 2 other DMCA grunts, and the question I had to answer went as follows. This Nintendo mascot is also a playable character in the famous video game Super Smash Bros. The other contestants filled in Mario and Lucario, which were both wrong, so they ended up getting squashed by Snorlaxes, but by the time it was my turn, Quizmaster Paul wanted to battle me with his butthead Wogwav. Honestly, I don't know if I solved this puzzle correctly because his Wogwav just kept on burning me with Will-O-Wisp, so I just ended up transforming into that Pokemon with Ditto and killed it with its own move. That revealed to us that the answer was indeed Wario. Paul then got crushed by a Snorlax, and I could move on to the final challenge, battling Silver on top of Mount Silver. He had a gun with shoot that would always one-shot all of my Pokemon. The hint he gave me was that I needed some real IP infringement if I wanted to take him down. I knew this had to do something with the Pokemon with Guns game Palworld, which is why I put Remoraid in my party and started leveling up all the Pokemon in my boxes until Arcanine would eventually evolve. If you've been paying attention, there was indeed a Remoraid in the room with Arcanine the moment we captured him. The evolution is literally called Pokemon Gun. With the ability Bulletproof, we could now dodge Silver's bullet and give him a taste of his own medicine. Now that he was taken care of, the final path would open up. However, there was no more gym challenge, because Giovanni was squeezed out in the last room like a bunch of lemons, so I picked up the Earth Badge from his corpse and caught the legendary Mewtwo here as well. Yes, we might have acquired all badges, unfortunately we still can't enter the Pokemon League just yet, as there were still a few more Dex entries for me to fill out. First thing I did was pick up another odd candy inside of Iridian. Following up was delivering the Steelwing TM to the guy in the desert who turned into a Behem and gave me proof that aliens existed. This information got taken up to the reporter, who rewarded me with 25 cents, or a quarter. Where do people use quarters a lot? Laundromats, so I went back to Minnesota and gave it to this nice man who just wanted to wash his favorite shirt. He was so grateful that we got a house voucher from him, which we traded in on island number 2 for an actual house on Route 5. Yeah, this place is a dump, but it's where all of my for sale signs are stored. Plus, it also gives you the W emblem, which changes your outfit to a yellow one. There was only one location I knew that required a W, so we went back to the Zubat cave, changed our outfit there, and that's how Zubat evolved into this Wario-themed Woobat. All of this color yellow shenanigans reminded me of the GS ball. I finally had enough of Oak's shenanigans, so I cut him down, stole his ball, and brought it back to Ivy. This made her witness an incredible Pokemon sign, but we didn't get to see it ourselves. So yeah, the GS ball really was very prominent to the story. With the help of Rock Climb, I could then find a DMCA warehouse which was all about letters. Cause you know, all Mega Pokemon are shaped like X and Y. The letter characters N, AZ, and Mirror B were all locked up in cages. My grandpa was also here, but what I didn't understand was the boss battle with Yveltal that was missing a V out of its name. So I let this place rest in my mind for a little while and went back to 38 Island. Cause that's where someone gave me a hint about the national park benches. Whenever someone says the word bench, I try to use retreat. Of course, doing that sent me all the way to Johto National Park. That's where I grabbed my newest encounter, Pinsir, gave back this odd candy to a collector because it was indeed not scattered around Kanto, and ended this little adventure off with an Elixir. My deck still wasn't fully filled out with Pinsir, so I tried to evolve my Caterpie into its final form by bringing it up to level 100, but that just turned out to be Butterfree. A little disappointing, but I can admire the trolling. Speaking about trolling, I knew I had to go back to 4th Island to visit Amity Square with Trubbish. Here we not only found all of the stuff from the square hole, but also people that scammed their way into this place, like this Trapinch that was disguised as a Pikachu, another kid dressed up as Pikachu too, but the most important things were the final Pokemon sign, this creature that we all know as Palkia, Dialga, Giratina? What actually is this thing? Why can't it be as clear as this Zygarde that was just hiding in the cave at the back here? With him captured, I only needed 5 more Pokemon. The first one was hiding behind all of those Pokemon signs that we saw earlier who were pointing to this door. Upon entering, this rainbow cloud took me all the way up to space, where I'd find the secret 4th legendary Pokemon, Castform. After everything we've been through, I also didn't expect there to be a Mew here. But this is 10 times better. It has the attack Rainbow Beam, which is a bright burst of light that can break through any shadow, something I will have to remember for the future. This then made me realize that I needed to use V-Create with Victini to give Yveltal his V back. This puzzle rewarded me with a Y button. So now you're wondering, what's next? My answer to that is yes. Now I could give the hard-boiled answer for Chansey, which meant I could go on my way to the Pokemon League. Just before I could enter it though, I got stopped by Mary and her Zap Molkuno. It kept on spamming stuff like triple wing beat, which meant none of my Pokemon could survive, but we all know Onix is immune to physical attacks, which is how I was able to beat it with Excel Rock. Once her Wartortle was defeated in the back as well, we were then on to the man who needed the odd candies. I'd only found 40 of them, but he himself found 5 while we were away. He dropped them on the floor after hopping over a fence. I picked him up, gave him back, and he realized that Meltan cannot evolve in this game. So as a friendly gesture for all the trouble we went through, he decides to gift it to me. And as the sprite may suggest, this Pokemon is indeed literal poo. I can't really do anything with it except for fill out my Pokedex, which means I only need 2 more Pokemon. One of them was Lovedisk's evolution Alola-Mola. It nearly broke my brain. It required me to capture a second and a third Lovedisk because one of those was holding a heart scale. Then I gave that scale to Manaphy, fished up another Lovedisk, and used Heart Swap on it, which, get this, evolved it in the battle itself. My god, there were so many hints about this throughout the entire game, but I never thought this would be the way to do it. But at least we now only needed one last Pokemon, which was stored inside of Bill's old PC. This is where I needed to use the TM for Mega Kick, as it allowed me to boot the PC back up. Then I used the box's terminal to change it to box 4, dropped down one of the actual boxes, sealed it off with the rest of the machine, and loaded the bright Pokemon into the big box, which let me withdraw the secret final Pokemon, Pika Blue, one of the most well-known Pokemon rumors of all time. Even though my Pokédex was complete, my journey wasn't over just yet. I knew Professor Oak was busy setting up that Hall of Fame for me, so I wasn't going to stop until I reached it. So I went back to Victory Road, picked up my HM for Rock Smash, and as the aide was trying to update my Pokédex, Rotom rejected it and left me. Now I couldn't just use HMs outside of battle anymore. I actually needed to take the required HMs with me now. This meant I could only use HM users to go through the final section here. But before I did that, let me show you a couple of secrets I found after I got Rock Smash. First, I smashed Steven Stone with it, then I found the house keys of the guy back in Viridian at one of the slot machines in the game corner, and lastly, I used my bike to speedrun strat my way through Celadon City Infinite Stair Loop. Speaking of stairs, let's hit up the last set of them because we're about to reach the Pokemon League. As I just said, this entire section requires a full party of HM users. I'm talking Bidoof, to smash rocks, use strength, cut, and fly. Goldingo and Seeking allowed me to use Surf and Waterfall. Machamp let us rock climb past all of these crucified Generation 5 gym leaders, and then our starter Charizard used the HM move Growl to scare this girl away. I then walked up to the doors of the Pokemon League, but they were locked, so I looked through the glass and saw a bench inside. So I used Retreat, and just like that, we made it in. Inside, we find the TM for Taunt, which is useless to us now because there's no PC in here, which means we need to complete this entire section with my squad of HM Pokemon. My dad works here as a nurse and tells me how proud he is of me for making it this far. For the last time, I read the copy pasta in the bookcase, lay in my very own bed, and then step into the first Elite Four member's room. She was luckily soft-locked in a battle against Red, which let me move past them and straight into the second Elite Four members room. The moment I saw a tree here, I didn't even hesitate and just cut it down on the spot without even asking who it was. If all the members are going to be this easy, this should be a piece of cake. Yeah, the game makes you swallow that sentence instantly, because in the third room, you're forced to fight everybody's favorite champion, Cynthia. Her fight was absolute BS. You have to think outside of the box with every single one of her Pokemon. Starting off with Spiritomb. It uses all of its spirits to create a 108 tuple team, so now you can't hit it anymore. It didn't take me long before I figured this out, because Machamp has no guard he can't miss, so we can kill it with just 2 rock punches. Then we have Serene Grace Togekiss, who loves to kill all of your Pokemon with Thunder Wave and an Air Slash combo. What can stop an electric type move like Thunder Wave? That's right, Seeking's Lightning Rod ability. Next up was Lucario, who would spam Aura Sphere to kill your Pokemon. But you luckily have a Ghost type in the back, Goldingo. He can easily negate that attack and wash him back to Rock Tunnel. Her Milotic then spams Freeze Dry, an attack that requires her to flip a coin. Now I don't know all that much about the TCG, but Scyther is modeled around it. So I just sent it out, easily tanked one of those attacks, and then slashed it down. That would send out her 5th Pokemon, Roserade. It spams the move Thorn Whip, an attack that will not only Leech Seed your Pokemon, but also poison them. Leech Seed now also does way more damage than usual, which always heals her up to full health. But there is luckily one Pokemon in your arsenal that's immune to both Poison and Leech Seed. So I evolved my Charizard all the way back into Ivysaur, nullified her attacks, and killed it with 2 more Grass Pledges. Only one Pokemon remains, and it's her signature Garchomp. It always goes first and uses the move Fly, which just like everything else, kills all of your Pokemon. But you also have one team member with Fly. A lot of people know him as the real god of Sinnoh. So I bring in Bidoof, click Fly, and defeat Cynthia's Garchomp right then and there. However, our Elite Four run is not over yet. She warns me that the hardest fight in Pokemon history is coming up as my 4th challenge. Or should I say 2nd challenge. So I entered their room and saw that it had been turned into Route 110 of the Hoenn games. Yes, we're doing the May fight that is indeed one of the hardest in Pokemon history if you're a kid that doesn't know what they're doing, or if you're a speedrunner that didn't get a Mudkip with the right nature. For Machamp, however, it was really easy to just punch through her, which meant we could move on to the final room of the champion in no time. Like usual, some shenanigans does end up happening before we step into it, and that's the don't look at me girl getting shot down just before she can get to me. Now we can finally look at her and see what's hiding behind this last door. So I walked forward, looked up, and saw all of my rivals. Gary, Larry, Jerry, Harry, Larry number 2, and Perry, a guy I've never seen before. They all combined their powers and became friends because of one thing, a personal vendetta against me. I mildly inconvenienced Larry's workday, just stood by when Radicate got killed. So if I truly think I'm champion material, I have to show it to them right here and now. Because they combined all of their legendary birds into the ultimate Pokemon, Zapmolkunogia. This might be the best boss fight I've ever faced in any game. And beating it wasn't a doozy either. We had to use knowledge from our prior experiences to get through all 5 of its heads. Starting with the Lugia one. It sets up Shadow Sky, which kills all non-Shadow Pokemon at the end of the turn. It also lays down Shadow Lego bricks to damage your Pokemon when you switch them in. I was trying to get things going with my HM team, but none of it worked out. Each and every single one of them got knocked out easily. And just as we're about to white out, something magical happens. Our buddy, the Rodon Pokedex, joins our side again and allows me to use my PC boxes in this battle, letting me access every single Pokemon we have to try and figure out a way to get through this fight. I started with the secret 4th legendary cast form, who changed into its shadow form and blasted out a rainbow beam that went straight through their shadow shield and killed the Lugia head. Now it was Articuno's turn. It hit me down with a quintuple wing beat. So I searched my boxes for Onyx because just like how we beat Zapmolkuno, we're going to take down Articuno too. I negate its physical attack and used a Cell Rock to knock it out again. Now it was on to Ho-Oh. I went for a Cell Rock again, but it manages to survive and heal itself with Healing Heat. At the end of the turn, Shadow Sky takes us down. But I knew my dad could double dip his way through this legendary rainbow bird without a problem. Once the 3rd head had been scooped up, it was on to Zapdos. Its charge attack, 10,000 volts, was able to kill anything in its path. So I had to dig deep down in my brain and remember how we killed Zapdos the first time. It was Rattata's Fear strategy with Endeavor and Quick Attack that did the trick back then. But now I only had Eradicate that instantly got killed by the spikes that were laid down. Luckily, there was another Pokemon in my box with the move Endeavor, Mewtwo. This was able to damage it more than enough to take itself out with a recoil damage of 10,000 volts. But that wasn't the only thing that went down in that moment. The power grid did too, just like in our very first battle. This also shut down my PC box, so now I couldn't bring out any more Pokemon. I started searching through the only thing I still had left, my bag. I didn't know what to do until my bike, Koraidon, reached out to me and sent himself out into battle. With the power of its sandwich, it survived a Moltres kick and countered back with Collision Course to knock both of our Pokemon out. However, this unfair fight isn't over yet because they still have their level 6 Wartortle. And again, just like in that very first fight we had, I bring in my level 4 Charmander. At this point, I knew we were destined to lose this battle because Hyper Beam would once again knock me out. Just as they were about to deliver the final blow, my dad says the words, "Never give up, son. Trust your instincts." Those words must have connected with Charmander too, because now it gains the Revenge ability, letting it survive on 1 HP as we get healed up in the next turn and kill Wartortle with one final scratch. The lights of victory shine down on me, and in that moment, Charmander evolves into Wartortle. If this isn't the perfect way to end your game, I don't know what is. Gary doesn't want to accept this defeat, but Celia doesn't care and kicks him off screen. She congratulates me for completing all of her challenges. She hopes we understand why she bullied us so much throughout this game. She all did it to build us up to this exact moment. And honestly, I couldn't have been happier. Because if the game didn't make you think out of the box this much, it wouldn't feel the same. I can't really explain it super briefly, but it really makes you challenge yourself. Of course, you're not going to understand every single reference in the game, but that's why you need to do research and write things down so you can lay links later on. I don't think I've ever felt this many emotions while playing through a game. Not only does it make you laugh a bunch of times, it also makes you feel satisfied when you complete a puzzle. You've got recurring characters that you build emotional bonds with too. Yeah, there's a lot of BS in this game, but most of it can be solved very easily, which is what I love about it. I could talk about Celia's stupid ROM hack for hours upon end because there's just so many reasons why I love it. But I think the main one is that you can really see that every single bit has so much thought and effort put into it, which is partly because of all the wonderful people that helped her create this game. Besides being really grateful to those people myself, I also definitely want to give a shout out to their Discord server because without them, I would definitely still be stumped on some of the puzzles. Now I know I probably missed out on a ton of stuff, but there's just so much in this game. I really tried to include as much as I could, but I honestly don't think there is a way for me to portray how amazing this game is by just showing it to you. You really have to play it for yourself, because that's when you truly get the satisfaction of beating the craziest puzzles in the world. Now there is also an entire post-game section that will require me to get all 151 shiny Pokemon, each one also having their very own puzzles. So if you want to see me complete that as well, leave it in the comments down below. But for now people, I'm going to sign off by thanking not only Celia, but also the wonderful membership and Patreon supporters of the channel. Just like with Celia's ROM hack, without you, stuff would be a lot harder to make. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for always having my back. So without any further ado people, I've been Zwiggo, and I'll see you all in the next one.